Day continuing here as we bounce around at session lows, trying to hold key levels here back to the upside for the overall market. Here's a look at the SPY. Currently, we came into 394 and held once again a little bit higher, in fact, for the S&P, where the NASDAQ overall right back to the lows here. I can bring up the cues for you and see, yeah, we tested this low to the number, and we're trying to bounce here. So a number of individual tech names moving around, a number of individual, looks like energy names moving around at the moment as well. Bring this over, and we can have a look at crude oil trying to get back to the upside. Still 1.7 on the day higher. You can see a little bit of volume coming in there. There was a note from OPEC Plus. So Iraq saying OPEC Plus signaling their plans to cut about 2 million barrels per day coming up this month. That caused that volume spike and to move back through to 79 on crude oil this afternoon. It's been a busy day for some of the energy producers overall. As far as movement goes, we had a little bit of a rally out of the gate this morning, and then it ended up, there's the XOM for you, it ended up getting faded pretty quickly. Still kind of chopping around in this range. 110 ends up being support. That was the end of the day yesterday, but you can see a bit of a bounce on volume coming in right now for not only XOM, there's Oxy, there's CVX still bouncing back to the upside as well. It's been an interesting day for some of the e-commerce names. Amazon specifically, I noted, was right back to the lows. Looks very similar to the Qs. In fact, we came into 91.50 and held twice back to the upside. That's 92.5 being tested right now, still down 1.5% on the day. We got those numbers in the pre-market from Shopify talking about better than expected, not only Black Friday sales, but numbers coming through for Cyber Monday. Pretty good for Shopify as well. We'll touch on that coming up. We'll touch on Tesla. Yeah, there was really no catalyst to that move back to the downside that I could find, but pretty ugly once again for Tesla today. They did talk a little bit in the pre-market, as we did, on that new Model 3 that is to come through. They were discussing fewer components in the interior and fewer or less complexity overall, which they're hoping is going to cut manufacturing costs on this new Model 3. So worth a note. It's been a pretty ugly day and a pretty ugly week so far for Tesla. Apple back to the downside as well. We'll touch on all that coming up. As we do, to kick things off every single day, we'll jump into a review of what was available to you for opportunities at the open this morning. To kick things off, Neil is here today with a look at one of his trades.
Welcome, your trade of the day, as always, brought to you by Day Trader. We'll check that QR code below. It's going to be AMD. What I like about this, it's a tale of two trades. And sometimes you come in with a bit of a plan of action, and then you have to adapt to what the market's going to give you. So I've got my 15-minute up here. I'm going to highlight the channel because if you're watching the morning show and you're following along the prep, you would have heard me say I favor 72 long in AMD. So I'll just show you on the 15. When we had that big move up last week, and I'm talking this move here off the 72 in a 75, you had this bottom channel the previous day, 71.5. You had the top end of the channel, 72.5. That's where it broke out from early in the session a couple of times, both pre-market, then dip into that range right off 72, and then it started running to the upside. So in yesterday's move, right at the bottom of that channel, well, the top of the channel at 72.5 is where you caught a little bit of a bit. So I know the channel I'm looking for. It's 71.5 to 72.5, and I like that 72 long in the middle. I'll go into that level. Coming out, I'm going to look for that long, be in it in front of that 71.5, hopefully with an average price of 72. But I can't dictate what the market's going to do. So when it does dip by, the first move never enters anywhere close to that price target. It actually gets like 72.80 at the bottom, about 30 cents away from the top of that entry channel. So it doesn't really give me an opportunity to buy it. And then I've got an interesting setup here because you've got a break of the low. You've held well above the support area that I was looking for. And then you're setting up for a break of the top, a momentum breakout to the top side. So I quickly adjust to a different setup. That's going to be the breakout trade where I'm taking that break of the high after a wick bottom and then just looking for a continuation into yesterday's top at 75. So I'm wanting to give it some room with a breakout trade. I'm never giving it forever. I like that pre-market bottom. We're going to give it to that. And if I'm going to hold back about 40 pennies or so, I want to make sure that the structure of the trade is, well, I cannot be getting super aggressively out out in front of 74.50. Because if I am, that risk to reward doesn't work. So I take out only a third of the trade when it rejects 74.50 and then need it to break higher. It's got to break above 74.5. Get into that top end of the range at 75, then I can start working the other 2/3 of the position and then take that profit. So the breakout trade comes in, middle of the day, we end up having a massive turnaround on some Apple news and analysts sort of coming out and dropping cold water on Apple again. That caused a huge tank in the market. The stop gets run for the breakout trade, and suddenly we're right back to square one. We're right back to looking at this bottom. And all I ask myself is, okay, well, if it's not going to get into this channel, if it's going to hold that low at the top end, is it going to be able to make a double bottom in front of the top of that range? So that's pretty much exactly what we get. I'm in the long on the way down. You're going to see me stop it out at the low. Don't want to get completely run over because remember, I think if it gets down to 72.50, there's $1 worth of room where I'd want another long. So I'm out of it and only back in when it wick bottoms, reclaims the low. That's these two entries here. Now, first one on the way up, and then I'm actually buying more as it goes higher. This is the thing. When you get a wick bottom like this and the momentum's coming to the upside, sometimes you only want to add on the way in. You can average down all you want, which is getting yourself a better price that's going against you. But sometimes when it starts going and there's momentum behind it, you want to be adding on the way up as it is going. So that's exactly what we did after the wick top. I'm going to scalp some out as it takes out 73, a little bit of size there, take some more out at the quarters, take some more out at 73.30. Now remember, this trade with an average of 72, about 90 for an average, the risk is to the low of the day. So from risking 20 cents, I'm going to want to scalp a bunch of this out and then let it ride through VWAP. Once it got through VWAP, it's kind of obvious where I put my trailing stop. You're going to see me get the trailing stop exactly where we had it before. That's going to be that pre-market low. There was a good turnaround, and as a matter of fact, it turned around nicely, bouncing off of this 73.20 area, and that's where I'm looking to get back in the afternoon, playing that upward trend. But this was a case of having one original plan off a key price area, having it not get to my price, adjust to a breakout trade, and then when that was done, go back to those original levels and find a structure at the bottom that works for a successful scalp trade. Sometimes the market's going to throw you some curveballs out there, but A, I knew the area that I wanted it long. I knew some setups I could play once it was breaking out, and then it's just a matter of following your plan. Always follow your plan. Always check us out every single day, but it is all about day trade the world and having the ability to make multiple executions and trade multiple strategies. Being a day trader, you want to have more than one way to make some money. That's what I love about our platform here. As always, brought to you by Day Trade the World. There's AMD. It's your trade of the day, and it wasn't how I originally thought it was going to be.
Yeah, back and forth we go for not only some of the chip names this afternoon, the overall market as well. Stuck in this range right now. We are testing the top end of the range, but could be a lot worse. Obviously, 0.13 for the S&P currently. The NASDAQ, 0.72 to the downside again. Both kind of held that initial low from this morning and are trying to bounce back to the upside. Make sure you grab that every single day, guys. We send it out for free to you. Absolutely free. Comes right to your inbox. The watch list every single morning. Was another day of gaps. Today was the upside for these Chinese ADRs. We discussed a lot of them in the pre-market. We got some headlines then, as Neil was just mentioning, regarding Apple throughout the midday. Initially, there was a positive report suggesting that the area of China where the Foxconn facility is was going to loosen some of the restrictions once again. And then that analyst came out and, yeah, not only, I don't know if threw cold water on it is severe enough for what happened to Apple, straight to the downside after saying that production was most definitely going to get hit in this quarter to the tune of about 20%. Anywho, here is Alibaba. I wanted to start things off with 5% on the day. It was another day, as I mentioned, of gaps. There's a gap to the upside, and then these things tend to just go sideways. The past couple of days, it was down, go sideways, gap up, guys, go sideways. What do we do when we get a nice gap in the morning, but not much to do with a 5% day for Alibaba?
Yeah, well, it's 5%. Yeah, exactly. You don't trade it. It's 5%, but all of that is in the gap, right? If anything, we're actually down from the open. If we had that number up, it'd be negative. So if the gap has no follow through, then how do you exactly trade it? It's so hard it's difficult to trade this. I mean, yesterday, the gap down opened up a nice little base, which then they rallied kind of from that bottom. So even then, this is the trade. This is a 30-minute trade from yesterday. So yeah, gap down, went sideways below the previous day's low. And then once we got above 76, we really got going towards 77 and change. Now we're coming back in, gap one more time above a high from a couple days ago. And we're just going sideways. And this is how BABA is. Unless you get a day like this where it's a straight run, it's going to be one of those gap and do nothing situations, and it's very difficult to trade them. And I think BABA, if anything, if trying to make money on BABA, would have most likely lost money on these ADRs. And I know PDD was an option. You were looking at JD earlier. They all, I know, not all of them. I guess PDD actually had a decent move, but some of the other names like Billy and JD, they kind of did the same thing, which was kind of, well, not Billy, shit. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been mostly looking at JD and BABA, but anyways, it doesn't really matter. Like
Billy was good.
Billy was good. Billy was good, and what was the other one? I just looked at it. PDD.
Oh, well, that's the thing. You wanted something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanted something.
JD and BABA just went nowhere.
I got caught up in JD, and I'll show that one in a second. But I think you could have. Look, I just said don't trade it under my breath. I guess some people might have heard that. But you actually could have traded Alibaba. You probably just needed to, once it respected the high, look how many times it's going to wick top through the high of the day. And I think once you see that a few times, the trade is, and a lot of times if I'm looking to short a stock, I'm short out this on a wick top, I'm thinking break down to the low and fill the gap in. Like that's not a setup that I'm thinking, oh yeah, you're just going to scalp it all day long to try and take $1. No, that's when you're trying to get a real move out of it. But that ended up not being the case. It gave you wick highs and then inside the range and trending down. And it would have been fine if you're in scalp mode. And that's the thing about the market. If you can identify that it's going to be a scalp day early, like congratulations, because that's one of the easiest ways to be able to make a ton of money. Like I ended up in a different stock that basically had the same kind of move. Like I was looking at that 54, a couple of wick highs there, and I started out with the notion of bigger moves. Like I took 53.5 and didn't take $0.50 on JD. And then only when I got more shares in here at 54 after another wick high, I was like, well, this time if it goes back down into the bottom, I should take something out because I'm just going to reload back at the high of the day anyways. So that's exactly what I did. Took more at the high of the day, got stopped out. Then it looks like it's about to slam to the downside. I enter early again, work the top, and this is where I had to make an adjustment because enter in the middle, wick top, get more, try to play for the bigger move, get stopped out. I then start the exact same pattern again. I'll zoom in so you can see. Oh, I don't know if I can get rid of this wick. And then I make the exact same pattern again after I'm stopped out. Enter at this consolidation, add here, looking for the bigger move down. But that wasn't what was happening in the stock. And by the time I realized it, it was probably a little bit too late. I started just saying, I'm going to take out in front of 54. I'm going to scalp quarters and 30s. I'm going to take out 54 VWAP. I'm going to scalp back in 54 30s. And then I'm just rinsing and repeating. And of course, it's like later in the day when when I'm not really as engaged in the stock and I'm just holding on to it, it finally makes a move into the low. But it never broke the low. So you have to take what the market gives you. If I'm not holding out a little bit too greedily early on and just more aggressive scalping this, I probably do a lot better on JD.com. And then the flip side of it was Billy. And I think if it wasn't an ADR, I'd probably be sitting long off 1530 here on Billy because up 22%. I liked the breakout, missed the breakout, bought the dip at the breakout price at 1440, and then trailed out too early at 1510. I just don't know if this is going to move in the afternoon. Otherwise, I think it would make sense to just play this 31s long, see if it can't break out the high of the day. Because if there's one that was a missed opportunity, I came in saying I want Billy long. There's your 50 period. It's the one that reported news. It was gapping above the 50 period on the daily with all kinds of room to the upside. And just a 15-minute it tells you the story that you want to hear. And you want to find if you're in something like this, you want to find your way to still be in it when it's giving this consolidation, just so that you can let it ride. And that way, if it's breaking the high, you have a chance because it still has $1.50 worth of room till it gets to last week's top. It's just, if this market's teaching you anything, it should be that when something is really going and it's got this much room, when you look at a higher level chart, you want to give it that chance to go. And I think sometimes that just means ignoring the fact that the market was looking like it was going to tank on me several times and just holding on to the long anyways.
Only one of those days. Back to the upside we go right now, ever so slightly, but pausing at the top end of the range for the overall market. Let's talk about Apple, because we saw yesterday Apple kind of kicked off that move to the downside into the close, dragging down the entire market really with it. This is the tweet that caused the move during the midday. This is a well-known analyst who covers Apple and all things that are happening around that Foxconn facility. This is a very extensive tweet thread, really talking about all the reasons why. It's going to be a 15 to 20 million unit, less than expected Q4 as far as production for the 14 Pro is concerned. 20% really across the board for this one. Apple down 2%, guys, trying to get back to. I mean, Brad was talking about 140, but wow, another 2% here for Apple.
Apple, quite the ride. We got it. It looked like it was up 60, 70 cents. I sit back down, and what happens? There's news related to production issues or forecasts, and it completely falls apart on me. Yeah, so Apple, not a good trade for me today. Okay, so I'm trying something different. Is this chart easier for you guys to see? I know a lot of people had issues with my black chart. I'm trying to stay away from the white because it's so bright, but how is this chart for you? This is like a gray. Is this easier? Is this better than the black? Even by a little bit? I'll go with this. Put in the chat.
Once you go black, you never go back.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Okay. Yeah.
Of course I was going to say that.
All right. Apple. This is the 5-minute chart here. 30. Oh, that's a garbage 30. Let me actually use mine. Sorry, guys. I'm going to have to go back to my actual chart. This is my black one. This is the ES. Apple. This is kind of the break point, this 143 break to the downside. We were trying to play in front of it. Nice little bounce. Nope, right through 143, you get out, and then it just continues on down. We're getting closer and closer to that one. Well, we bounced now, obviously, but we got closer and closer to that 140 big round number. Everybody wants to pay attention. The question is, can you bounce enough to change the trend on Apple? Clearly, multiple days of downtrends down, this third day down, and the way it's been basing out, at least before this break around 143, I would want to see what this 143, 143.50 brings to the table. Let's see if there's some resistance up here for continuation of this short. If not, you may have to go for that 140 extension break to the downside, of course. Tomorrow is going to be a rebalance day, a lot of things happening in the market. So on top of the Fed and all the numbers that are coming out, we could be in a very different spot on Apple coming into tomorrow morning and into the 2 p.m. time period, or even actually the close when we have to do some rebalancing action. So it should be an interesting one, but for now, it does look like Apple wants to carry the downtrend. Even though the market has bounced up significantly from the lows, that's the S&P side. Apple, not so much, just maybe $1, not even $1, 60 cents where we're at now from the lows. So Apple, relatively weak. Look at like a downtrend. The only place that I can think of is if we get into 142, 142.50, 143-ish, we may be able to join that short if there's resistance up there.
Yeah, I just wish Apple was as simple as it was yesterday. Like it was just, I mean, in terms of the structure of the trade, because I just looked at the 50 period and said, okay, 147, short in front of 147. It then gave you the pop at right at the open. It just shoots up like everything else did in the market, doesn't break that resistance at 47, hangs out below, and then just tanks the rest of the day. So I kind of came in when it was at the same price thinking, well, okay, it's exactly where it was yesterday in the pre-market. I like the exact same level. Let's just get a pop in the market, and then we'll short Apple into that. And it just never materialized. I ended up not shorting Apple. I think if I'm going to get into it, I have to look at 142 as the entry point at this point. If it does pop back in, that's where I would want to join the trend. But sometimes you're going to miss out on it. And for anyone listening, I did have to say that little bit of a softball. If you put it up on a tee, then I'm going to be able to hit it. I'm not going to pretend to be a comedian, man, but always bet on black once you go black. Let's be real. We joke about this all the time. Like I do look at black charts personally for myself. That's what we were referencing there. It's just a matter of personal preference. However, we have been told, that when you use the white charts, it's a little easier for people to be able to see and sort of make out the fills and the different levels. Whether that's true or not, I leave that up to you guys, but that's why we use them. Only because I don't see it out there. I just want to get to Man U for a second because we're not likely to talk about this one in the rundown. And it's trying to break, again, it's trying to break out. So 22, yesterday's high, pretty simple. It's breaking that level, not really doing a heck of a lot because it tends to do this. Like it'll consolidate after making a break and then it'll go. So I'm kind of sitting in this consolidation. I'll have a relatively tight stop on this. I don't want it going past 90s, 2190s that is, and then see if it can't break and get toward that 23 high. If it dips, then I'm gonna like 2180 or so just to sit in the channel and have it go. It's continuous rumors with nothing firm that they could get bought, and it's been grinding higher. It found great support off of yesterday's lows. I wish I'd paid more attention to it this morning, but I'm in it now.
Oh.
There we go. Let's talk about some of the oil stocks. Back to the upside here for, well, I mean, crude coming off a little bit. We're, what, 10 minutes away from the close of the pit session for the day in Chicago. So a bit of a bump there as we came on, as I mentioned, OPEC Plus or Iraq signaling that OPEC Plus could consider more cuts, 2 million barrels per day. This is XOM. That was the move, not only for crude oil, but a lot of these producers back to the upside. We were discussing these in the pre-market, if you remember, with oil kind of gapping higher and grinding back to the downside. Wasn't much to do on these either, really, unless you waited patiently for some of these prior support areas to come into play, guys, for these energy producers. I mean, 1.3% for oil right now, but it's been sideways most of the day.
I mean, you're going to talk about the oil stocks. I'm going to go right into futures contracts on crude, and this is what you got. I mean, this is the 30-minute chart. I mean, forget that. Forget the 30. It's going to be even more obvious on a 5. That's what you're dealing with all day today, right? We were setting the bottom around here, around the 78. I think it was like 30 or 20 or something like that, and we set the top at 80, which sits just above that red line, and we were just, okay, if we can find longs near the bottom, let's go for the longs. And all it did was get to the top end of the range, fall back down, get to the top end of the range, fall back down. And then it did a one flush move all the way down to 77, which then came right back into that bottom end of where we were bouncing off of earlier, which is around that 78.30, 78.40-ish. So here we are right back to where we started. And we have done, yes, we're up $1, 1.29%, but at the same time, is this really much of action? Like, this isn't much action here. Going into or the pit close, which is in about 8 minutes or so. So sideways action for the most part on crude, but does not mean you forget about it. Why? Because we're sitting in front of that 80 mark. We can easily consolidate, false move through, back to the consolidation range. We could easily consolidate and make that breakout to that 80 level and through that 80 level going into tomorrow or even on Thursday. So keep an eye on this one here. As we consolidate, the better the trade above 80 looks. So we'll see how long it takes to make a move on that break. But I would definitely pay attention to crude. Nothing to do with it today, but definitely one to watch for tomorrow and going forward.
Yeah, I was obviously looking at Oxy today. I think I talked about XOM. There's no point going over XOM until it gets to 115 again, which it's not even a guarantee. But Occidental, it ended up bouncing pretty much exactly where I wanted it. But I think we just sort of talked about about AMD and where my attention was at the open. In the Chinese ADRs, if you're watching the morning show, I pretty much constantly was in 4 or 5 positions, and none of them were Oxy. We end up bouncing right off 68.60. I mean, the 50 period on the daily, exactly that's where you end up bouncing at the open. So it's a bit frustrating because that's the level I liked. I like that 50 period for the bounce. Once it happened, I'd already missed it. And then when it was making the dip in here, I'd moved on and I wanted AMD's trade. I'm not going to say that this is probably about the same opportunity as AMD was catching it off of that low. So it almost didn't matter. Like a lot of stocks were giving you that pullback down right around just before lunchtime and then buying the dips, getting through VWAP. So I chose AMD because I had started wanting that one and had traded that one in the morning. So my focus was more on it. But yeah, that 50 period on the daily has held up almost perfectly. It's got a double bottom down there. Can it hold a third time? We're definitely going to find out. I don't want to, not to really ignore some of these other stocks out there, but that Tesla oh my god, are you crapping me? Seriously, Tesla? I was about to say this, and I should, I'll get away from the offer now because I was about to say, yeah, Tesla's is getting close to that 181 last I checked. So I was looking at my chart up here, and then I went on that little discussion about Oxy, and that's how quickly Tesla sells back down. So it was 180.50, getting really close to 181 where I wanted to short it, and before I can even finish talking about another stock, Tesla's already down 50 cents, which leads us to Tesla day lows there, Brendo.
There we go. We were just discussing because Tesla's next. So let's talk about it, shall we? Because it was an interesting day, still is an interesting day back to the downside after we saw the complete opposite yesterday. If you remember, this is what happened yesterday. Red to green and then some. We ended the day basically flat. We tried to do the same thing this morning. But here we are at day lows, guys. Really no significant news on this today other than what we talked about a little bit earlier as far as COVID easing, or some signs of COVID easing once again in China. If you remember this morning, they were discussing the fact that cases dropped for the first day over day number in a week, which is going to be positive for all of these. But yeah, here we go, back to day lows almost for Tesla.
Yeah, Tesla's been quite the ride. And we were talking about this in the sense that there's a multi-day move. Let me pull up the daily chart here. That daily trend to the downside. So what I had set up was 190, north of 190 would technically break that. So any sort of move that goes into that range, into that zone, you look to potentially fade if there's an option to fade it, right? So then you break it down to a smaller chart. Let's go to the 30. That trend line's still there. There's your trend line up top. And it was a quick and aggressive move all the way to that 186. And at that point, you're putting up about $4. You're still a little further away from the trend line than I would have liked. I would have preferred it closer to that 188 area. But yeah, we kind of went up there very fast, and then we completely fell apart again, back to the range low now. I mean, this is looking like a sideways action with a trend over the top, and they're respecting the 178 through the bottom. So at some point, I would imagine we're going to have to break out of either the 190 or the 178. And given that we're $2 away from 178, that seems like the closer option. But the way Tesla's been moving, typical of a stock that's in a range, right? And it's not surprising that we're getting sharp moves up and then sharp moves down. Regardless of the gap, the range is very clearly established. And here we are kind of just playing along inside the middle until either side breaks, whether it's upside or downside. I'd just be very careful on how you play Tesla. If you're good at range trading, this might be the option for you right inside, and see if you can't play ping pong right through the bottoms and the tops.
So I know you're frustrated with Tesla because we've missed opportunities. I'm frustrated about it because I was trying to short yesterday off a couple levels and got out of the way of it most of the time, but never found the way into the long. But you think you're right. After what happened in yesterday's trade, I'd rather, and I said this 3 times, well, probably more than 3 times because I repeat myself a lot. Sometimes you got to be willing to miss the trade to make the trade. And I think if I had that approach yesterday in Tesla, I probably would have got the short at the high. But I wasn't really willing to miss out on it, so I just kept taking shots at it. And then today, it's sort of the same thing. Like, yes, I did want the short on the pop, but it needed, I was not willing to compromise. It had to get up there. It had to at least get to that 88, if not closer to 90. So there was no trade for me on Tesla. And I would rather have that happen than just sort of get run over and over again. That's a better way to say it. But as we get back into the markets, I'm about to get more shares of Win. At least I think I am. Win has been a pretty solid long at a couple. This is very much like AMD. And sometimes we'll talk about trading setups, and there's a reason for this. Like if you saw AMD, okay, well, what was the move on AMD? Like I would have liked to buy dips in front of the previous day high, just like AMD. It dips down, don't get it, play the breakout, turn it into a dip buy, into a breakout trade. The breakout actually ends up failing at 82, and I said in the morning show, like wait for it to get back into the low, buy off of the low, scalp to VWAP, and been scalping it ever since. The difference here is that AMD actually has held and gotten back above VWAP, but this is now barcoding right around that 80 level. So I've been just buying in front of 80s and trying to scalp it into VWAP here, which is about 50 to 60 cents. But I need to get more aggressive as the market's rolling back over. So it's been a solid setup, but to me, these are very similar type of plays in AMD. A little bit more in AMD and Win, a little bit more range on AMD, but very similar. Like it went from a breakout style trade to a hold the bottom, just more strength in advanced micro devices. That's why I'm looking to buy a higher low here in AMD, whereas I'm only looking at that 80s over there in Win. And just a plus, I got PayPal, and shout out to everybody in the chat that was like, watch PayPal. Well, it might have only been 1 or 2 people in the midday show that were yelling about PayPal being relatively weak. And I noticed that, but what really caught my attention was have a look at 78.70 on PayPal. So you had the monster flush in the 22nd, higher low 78.70. The next day, 78.70. And since then, no break, breaks down that price. So where do you think you want to be short on the way back to the upside in front of 78.70? I was short, short, short. It stopped out, immediately wicked me out. I'm getting right back in. When you show me a wick top, I'll take the hit and then just jump right back into the trade as it trends to the downside. And that's fine. Like if you're going to risk like 20, 25 cents there, I'm not really getting anything out till it goes 25 cents and taking 50. And if it had gotten a little closer to that 78.70, I probably would have taken some more shares short and I'll get more aggressive shorting it. So when you find a good level, don't hesitate to be active around it and look for your opportunities. So shout out to whoever said that one in PayPal. I'm a huge fan of finding those opportunities when we can.
Down 2% once again today for PayPal, even with some cryptos anyways trying to bounce. Wanted to mention this, speaking of 2%, seems like a theme today. Here's Amazon, negative 2%, just bounced off that 92.5, trying to get back to day lows as well. We were talking a little bit about e-commerce stocks, specifically in the pre-market around Shopify, more so than Amazon. Shopify comes out after a whole bunch of analysts yesterday said they had a really good Black Friday and a really good Cyber Monday. They came out and said, yeah, no kidding, it was a record, both Black Friday and Cyber Monday. We talked about yesterday's high a little bit, 40. We don't quite get there today, but it tried very, very hard, guys, to get to 40. Look at where we're at now, down 2.5%. Day lows here for Shop.
Shop was a big mover this morning. That was that quick pop right there. We're like, okay, well, we'll wedge it in here between 39 and 38.50. If we get a move above 39, let's see if we can get to 40. Yeah, we got to 40 real quick, and then we spun right back around, and then went right through that 38.50 again. And now here we are at 37. So if you were paying attention to this, quick move above 39, take it to 40, and then spin around 38 and change, 38.40-ish short, and now here you are at 37. I stopped paying after the attention to this one when it popped and the futures market was falling. And I'm just like, no, I'm not getting involved. I'm not touching this. This is going in different directions. I don't want to be a part of this. But clearly the setup is there, the trade is there, and now here you are on Shop, down towards 37. There's some action here from, what day is this? The 25th. The late session highs are going to be sitting there around 37. So I imagine there's going to be some support through that little band there, right through here. So going on down. So I'd keep an eye on this one here. We might catch a bid, but the trade has run its course. For all you needed to do was just catch the trade near either that top if you wanted to, or the 38.50. If you're trying to get into a trade now, it's much more difficult because of where you are. This thing has to either bounce back to 38 or start falling a little bit more through 37 into the 36 and change before you can start making a move. But yeah, the trade for Shop was a little earlier. It was when it wasn't looking that great. The long was looking terrific. Yeah, that's when the short was actually a decent pickup. So here we are kind of falling off a little bit here on Shop going in to the end of the day, but going right into support.
Yeah, the opportunity cost for me of looking for some of the shorts in the Chinese online retail and some of those names there was going to be missing out on Amazon. Not that Amazon got to 95 anyways. It probably would have been an early entry if I had gotten into this, but it's fallen like an absolute rock. And look at all the weakness that you're seeing there. I want to jump to, I'm in PayPal right now, so I'm not going to double down sort of talking about that one again. And I went over the levels there, but I did want to just have a quick look at what's going on in Affirm. So I have not traded Affirm today, and Affirm for whatever reason is holding up a little bit better. If you want to give me a reason why you're going to see Amazon off the lows and you're going to see Affirm holding the bottom here, I'm not entirely sure why it's still up 2.5%, to be quite frank. And I think my approach with this is I look at how tight the consolidation is on the daily chart. And I was trying to make that, I look at here, I was right to trade it yesterday. I was just a little bit impatient with getting in. So until this breaks up, retest like $14, or you actually get a real test of this low down here at 12.30, there's not much to do in the stock, right? It's just going to try to chop you around here. Forget about all this nonsense. It's either making a test at 14, right up at the top end of the range, and you're looking to fade it, and I guess if it squeezes, you can break out long there, or let's see it get to the bottom. Because it's just so confusing how you're going to have so much weakness in some of the retail names, and a name like this is going to be holding up and not falling. I guess it's run out of sellers for whatever reason. So I want to get a look. I want to give a shout out to that. I see some people talking about hoodie, not hoodie, like HUDI, Hudi. You guys tell me how you want me to say it, but it's the symbol here. But it's in the midst of a breakout, and this looks pretty solid on the 15-minute. And normally I'd be saying, yeah, just buy dips 750 from a technical standpoint. Lots of volume, relative volume today to sustain this break. And then when I pull it up, it is ugly and choppy, and it's got a 15 to 20 cent spread. So that's the problem. Like, the bid is here, the offer is here. That's not very tradable for a day trader. Like, that basically means that you need to be, if you're sitting in it with 750 as your stop, you really have to have a stop down at like 730. So you're risking 30 to 40 pennies in here and looking for a really outsized move. So that's the thing about wanting to trade off the technicals. You have to be able to execute and then look at where the liquidity stands on the stock. And then a $7 stock with a 15 to 20 cent spread just might not be very tradable here. So I might have to ignore that one. Is it Hoozy? I don't know. You guys let me know. Oh, you're saying Hoozy because Sharif says Tesla. No, it's Hoodie. It's Hoodie. You guys let me know. I have no idea how you want me to pronounce that one. But Man U, I do know this one. Manchester United continues to go higher. So we're late to this one. And yeah, I know. I'm hitting the football spike for
soccer.
You guys get it. It's soccer.
You guys had a soccer one, didn't you?
Although we've had a lot of graphics, and you probably know this, and we cleaned them up because we had too many that we weren't using, and then now it's like we don't have any new ones coming through, so I'm hitting all the same ones over and over again. My sports-related ones are hitting a home run and doing a football spike. So that's all I got for you. So I'm using the football one because that's closer to relevant for Man U. It's just been doing this. Sit in consolidation, it breaks out and goes. If you look at my chart for a second, yeah, sit in consolidation, it breaks and goes. I take profit in front of 40, and now I'm not doing anything until it gets to 50, makes another consolidation, in which case I can either then hold, scale out if it breaks down, and then try to get more long in whatever the next consolidation is. And that's the name of the game until it gets to 23, because this is the 23 level from the other day. So it's been requiring a lot of patience, but hasn't been that complicated. Look at it all afternoon yesterday. You could have been long 21s and then just taking out 22s. It gets to the high. It never broke 22. It just did it now. So rinse and repeat until it stops doing this, because it's been not that hard to structure long trades in Man U the last few days here.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at much at Man U. That's a rundown. We finished the rundown, right?
We are done the rundown.
Yeah.
And by the way, just so you guys don't know this, but Fahad decided to go to Super Chicken today. And he also decided not to share anything. And I only had half my salad.
This is Fahad?
Yeah, I only had half my salad today because I didn't think it was all that great. And, usually, Prad always shares a couple of fries here and there. Fahad, apparently not. So we were talking all that trash, and then that's what I get. I guess I deserve it, right? Because I've been giving Fahad a rough time now and then. But those fries are really good, and I'm kind of hungry, I'm not going to lie.
See that, Fahad? You made Neil cry. Come on now. Well, not Neil cry. You made Neil. You broke Neil's heart. You should be shaking your head. I see you shaking your head over there. All right. Anyways, okay. Stocks. He says
He just said they're not that good. So.
He says they weren't that good. They were amazing. That's what he says. And come on, that's unnecessary. Now you're just digging at him. Come on, that's so unnecessary. All right. Anyways,
you got to go there.
I know, Fahad. You know, this man only ate half his meal for lunch, Fahad.
I'm legitimately kind of peckish.
All right, what were we talking about? Futures.
I could always eat, but that's my problem.
Okay. Futures market. This market's a joke, just like Fahad. It just keeps bouncing up, and then it just completely falls apart. It's a quick bounce all the way up. And then here we are right back at 53. We started here.
Now, Fahad.
We started right here, and now here we are. This was like a, 12, 13? No, it was like a 15-point move, and then a complete meltdown as we come right back down. So I initially thought that this would end the short idea against 40, but now it seems like this market wants to go right back into this range here with the top. I guess not even much of a top, but it's going to be about 70, it seems like now. So this is it. We're going to be playing back and forth through here. We're going to need an extension either through the top or through the bottom to get going. But for now, there's not much going on as we sit right in this range. There might be a late session move. I mean, we're at 240 going into what could be a fairly active morning tomorrow. So they might make some moves here right at the end. But for the time being, it does look like this market's a little confused on what it wants to do.
Yeah, so I don't want to I don't want to spoil things, but for those of you that are watching the match, I know a lot of our viewers are Americans, so you're probably excited. I think there was just a goal. I mean, it probably happened a couple of minutes ago, so I don't know if you're taping the game. Sorry, but you're probably gonna have heard it. It's 1-0 for the U.S. The other match going on right now is Wales and England, which obviously you know where I'm cheering in this one. I'd like to see England take that one down, and they should have already been through. I just missed AMD's curl here. I was sitting at 73.30, and it actually held another higher low, so I might try to get in front of 50s. Just to be able to participate in this to the upside. Market looks like it's still holding off the bottoms. I mean, maybe trending down, trying to put a higher low in. So I want to stick to strong names. This is still green, trying to take VWAP here, and I'll try to get back into that long. If you're watching Hoodie, it's still trending toward that 8 level. And just Apple is so incredibly weak, and I put Tesla in that group as well. Tesla, it tried to get to 81, stalled at 80.50, and I'm thinking maybe I should just get in front of 80.50 next time and play the range, and just play the range short. Like, it's got a bit of a wall here, so forget about trying to get to 81s. Let's just try a scalp trade, shorting it if it gets anywhere close to that 80.50. So I'm gonna get a little bit just sort of sitting in here inside the range, risk 25 to 30 pennies, and see if this can't get back into the low of the day. I want something other than just PayPal short. Oh, there goes Win, unfortunately for me. So I did have Win. It ends up taking out that bottom, consolidation bottom. I might not be done trading the stock today, but that's one where I kept on going back to the well for the long, and each time it wasn't as good. So first it's giving you $1, then it's giving you like 20, 30 cents, and then it's giving you absolutely nothing third time through. So I might be done with the longs. I don't want to completely write it off, because I'd like to see if the market hits a low and this actually holds up at about 79.60, I might jump back into it again, but I'd much rather focus on AMD here. And Man U continues to show strength. I'm going to look for another trade there, but AMD just picked it up. I said 73.50. I'd step up a little bit here, and then if it gets past VWAP, I can take some out, somewhere into the 73.70s, into those 80s to 90s, and then out in front of 74.
Yeah, I'm still looking for some names. It's been a rough day. I'm just looking for some names that are actually setting up decently, and given where the market is and given where the stocks are trading, like AMD, I don't like that chart. A lot of these other names, they're kind of sitting mid-range. The only one that looks half decent is Apple, and that's just because Apple's been weak. It's been trending down, and here we are kind of getting closer and closer to that 140 again. So trending now, looking to the day lows at 140.5. That's the game to be played now, is like, do I get involved south of 140, looking for the 140.5, looking for that 140 and put a 141 stop. That's a very tight trade, not typical of how I trade, but I think that move up on Apple against the futures probably was the better play, is to fade this rally and then look at it down. But I don't know, Apple close to its day lows here, and it looks like may take a look at that 140 today. Brennan.
A little one we talked about, I think it was in the morning yesterday, but HUDI just popping back up, guys, on volume, trying to get going here. Made a big move yesterday from 650 back to 750, and then kind of stalled out for the rest of the day. But nice move here, 15%. A little bit of volume coming back into HUDI.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that's showing some strength. And if you don't get a chance to see that goal, man, that was a nice goal. That was a nice goal. Definitely. Let's just say that was well earned. That was definitely well earned by the U.S. there, taking some pain. Sometimes you just got to lay it on the line. You'll see if you get a chance to check it out, you'll see what I mean. But a consolidation has now happened in Man U, so I'm going to go back to the plan, which is trail it here at 22.40. So if it breaks this channel to the downside, get out, and then maybe work back to some 22 longs. If it breaks higher, get out in front of 23. I do think that makes sense to get out in front of 23. That is the high from. I'll go to the 15-minute. There you go. Not yesterday's high, but that's Friday's high was at 23. If you remember, it turned around pretty harshly when it got to 23 before. So I'd expect I want to be out of this and then looking for another trade the next time it goes there. So I'm gonna get out of that one if it takes out 23, or if it trails between 22 to 40. If I get trailed out, I'll look for long still. I don't see much else that's giving me good opportunities to the long side. I didn't try to add to PayPal, but at this point I've already scalped out the bottom, and I'm going back to the 15 minutes so that you can see. If PayPal gets through the low of the day and the market takes out the low, it's got a lot of room to run, and I just want to be able to play this trend. So it might mean shorting pops a little bit lower and then holding through this low of the day. This one's running, it's about 75 pennies in the money. The level couldn't have been more obvious. That's why I got to thank you guys for shouting that one out. I'm kind of with you on Apple. I think you just want to, if it gets to 140 and it's a gigantic bid, I suppose I shouldn't rule out that I just want to go long 05 or something. But finding a way into this trend is an absolute must. Apple is incredibly weak down here, and I'm trying to get some Tesla to the south side. And I got to do the same thing with Apple. Forget about 42s. It might just have to be playing the 41 area to join this party because it's just so weak right now.
Yeah, I mean, with Apple being weak, the first question is, how's the NASDAQ? And the NASDAQ, well, not as weak as Apple, apparently, because we're not at the day lows on, we're not even close to the second day low. Because initially we put something close to what, 11,465, and then we did 11,480, and we're sitting just underneath 11,500 right now. S&P getting closer to that 3950, so we may have a move towards that day low earlier on NASDAQ as Apple continues the extension. But my question is, and this is what I got to figure out, where's the weakness coming from, or the strength coming from? Because we know Apple's weak, and we saw what Tesla's been doing. Is it Microsoft? Yeah, okay, but not awfully. I know Meta's there as well, but Meta's not, it doesn't have as much weight as it used to, so I don't really care about Meta in terms of strength. Everything else looks the same, so it must be, it's being offset somewhere else. Maybe the chip names.
Maybe the strength's in Mullen right now.
Yeah, because that's a big index name, right? But yeah, it looks like it could be some of these chip names here that could be holding it up. No, not even. Yeah,
I didn't need to diss Mullen, but Mullen is actually moving, by the way.
Oh, is it really?
No, it obviously has nothing to do with any. Mullen's doesn't matter. It's not an index. It's not really moving the market, but it is going to the upside, and it was a clean break at 20. I know a lot of people. I know a couple of people that were talking about this one. It was said early, and I try not to ignore the penny stocks. It was COSM that I was paying attention to this morning. Never really set up for me, so maybe I'll get to it a little bit later. But the thing about Mullen, the bottom, you got a clean bottom, double bottom at 19 even, and then it broke out 20. The next level is going to be if it can take out 2150. Like, that's a pretty big one. If it can get through there, I think you can really see an extension into 25. I'd be playing dips to 20 cents because either you're long. That's the thing about a penny stock. Like, yes, 1 cent at a time, but that's like 5%. So you really, if you want long, it's like your support's at 19, and then I'm looking for 20 to turn to support. I'm chasing 21s when 2150 is right there. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Brendo?
I know I'm not seeing anything, guys, on Mullen, but I know there was a production deadline, I believe it was, that's supposed to come into effect tomorrow for some more funding. I'm going to double check on that, but 8%, yeah, nice move here for Mullen. Volume still coming in, but I believe it's tomorrow, the end of the month. But we'll double check for MULN.
There you go. That's what Brendan. I mean, Brendan always gives us the goods. He knows what's up. But it was COSM that I was looking for. I was looking for a fade off the pre-market highs. Never quite got there. It did trade to 83, 84. But with a stop at 90, there's a difference between getting 86, 87 into a 90 at level and getting 83. 83, 84 into a 90 level. Like if you had to stop out on Alibaba at $90 and you're willing to risk like $2 or $3, would you compromise on shorting it at 86 or 87 and short it at 83 and a 90 level? Of course you wouldn't. And that's the thing about penny stocks. You have to still follow some rules in there. You can adjust a little bit, but there's only so much you want to give it. The good thing about COSM is look exactly where it bounced. Perfect. Like right off yesterday's close, 60 cents. Go back to the previous wick top. So I think it's found a pretty solid base. Ideally, I'd like to see it close above 65 cents, and then you're working that range to retest the highs. But I could see this going sideways, forming off of 60 with any luck for a couple of days, and then making another move to the upside. Like that's what you're looking for. Like the last time it pulled back, it was a sharp move. I think it might have to go sideways a bit here, and 60 makes as much sense. That's 60 to 65 as anything else. So if it can find support there, it might actually make a run at $1. But just keep in mind, like days where it sells off are going to happen when it goes 10 cents into 90, and you have to try to find a way to avoid chasing them too far. PayPal's at the low of the day. So that's still a daily chart. Forget about that. PayPal's at the low of the day. If it bounces off the low, I'm going to have a really tight stop trail here. So it just got to the low, about 5 cents away from it. So if it bounces up here and say reclaims, I want to say 78, I'll probably get out of it, maybe even 77.90. I'll just get out of it. I want to rinse and repeat and get back in for the short, but if it just sits here off the low, bounces and comes all the way up, I'm not going to give up the 80 pennies that we have right now for that win. And then in Man U, it's kind of a similar story. I keep typing NASDAQ and it's New York. It's now broken the high after consolidating at 40s. It's broken the top, and so I don't want to give it all the way back to that 2039 again. So I'm going to tighten the stop up to the new consolidation, which is about 22.55, and just let it ride. So, you know, we've already got this one. We're sort of sitting in it pretty much this entire time when it finally broke out. I love that Man U does this all the time. I want to be out in front of 23, so I'm going to give this room into 23 even. Looks like PayPal is going to challenge the way to the upside, and I'll just have to get out of it, but I don't mind that. I think, you know, we'll take the win. If I don't get like $1.50 on the trade, that's fine. It's almost power hour. There's going to be other chances to get back in, I think. Brendo?
So this is that note I was mentioning for Mullen. I thought I remembered reading something about this. But so November 30th, they did this deal back in July with Delpac Logistics for 600 cargo vans, the first 300 of which could be delivered, according to this anyways, as soon as November 30th. So that's that deadline that's coming up, obviously, tomorrow for MULN. Maybe, I haven't seen anything yet, but maybe someone knows something.
Could be delivered I also noticed it said at the request of the other company too. So it'll be interesting. Maybe someone knows something. Like
It just went to that 21.50, and this is the problem with chasing it, right? It just went to 21.50, exactly like 21.49 is what it got to, and now it's pulling back in here. So, you know, instead of chasing the top there, it's like, okay, well, that's resistance. If it gets above there, great. If it doesn't, then just look for a pullback. And if it's as deep as 20 cents, that's a good trade, I think. If it holds here at 21 cents, like if it holds 21, I'm probably more inclined to like a breakout than to just sit there grabbing 21s that far away from 20 even. And there's a lot, the bids are going to be gigantic on this. If you're watching a level 2 of the stock, like you're probably going to get overwhelmed looking at the bid of this. Just keep in mind, 128 million shares, it's completely, 250,000 shares or 300,000 shares is nothing. Like it'll chew through this like a hot knife through butter. Just have a look at all the prints that are coming through. Like it's not doing a ton of size, but when it goes through that, it'll have no trouble getting through a level like this at 21 even. So if 21 breaks, I'm looking probably 20 to 20 quarter for a little bit of a dip buy, and then so we can't scalp it back into 21. Otherwise, I want to see 21 hold and then take a long through the high of the day. I'm still in AMD. It hasn't been able to hold above VWAP just yet. I'm kind of in this channel, in the middle of the channel, looking for it to break VWAP before I start getting out. I want to play this one in there for that strength. I see a couple of other names out there. Geo, people are talking about. I don't want to have too many of these. I'm still looking for that pop in Apple, which I think is coming to be able to short. So the market's starting to play up here a little bit. That might mean I'll get trailed out on PayPal any second, but it also means Apple might be coming into this 141 here. Yeah, there goes the trail on Apple. So we'll ring the register on PayPal. I'll get to that in a second. But as Apple grinds higher, I want to see if I can get into this at 141. Not just going to sit on the offer, but it's about 20, 30 cents away from a chance to be able to get into this trend on Apple. Man, you're not doing a heck of a lot, but I didn't want to give up on PayPal like all the profit we had if it came back into that 78, 70 area. And I want to start shorting this one probably at the 50s. So if I get wicked out of PayPal, I think it was a good level, able to hold it into the low of the day. But if the market's going to make a higher low, then I think this could at least get back up to that 78.50. And then we can go back over to some PayPal. Tesla, I don't know if you're watching Tesla, but I'm canceling this. I'd rather trade Apple at this point. Tesla's not moving enough. I'm going to wait, let it move, and then maybe make a reaction. It's not moving enough for me here in Tesla, and I feel like we're wasting our time, or at least I'm wasting my time looking at it.
Yeah, Tesla is in that spot where it needs to kind of rotate. It's obviously been in a downtrend since we got that pop initially. We're at the right spot for us to turn. It's just got to figure out how it wants to turn. I don't know if that turn comes in at 181 or 182, but the way it's moving around, it's going sideways, obviously, but it's not giving you enough to make a move against the current trend. So that keeps you out of the long. Also, you can't jump into a short at the bottom end of the range. So that's also keeping you out of the short as well. So Tesla, I think the right call is to kind of just stop with this for today at least, because it's going to make a move either way at some point in the next day or two, I would imagine. Maybe not. We shouldn't put a timeline on it like that. But at some point, it's going to make a move either through the top of 190 or through 178. And until that happens, I think it's just way too easy to get chopped up in the middle. So that's what Tesla's doing. Current trend to the downside. Apple, obviously, the week one took out day lows and now is bouncing back a little bit. Let's see if this is just a small little bounce after we take out the day lows, or actually we're going to really sharply bounce and just initially just taking out stops and coming right back in. So right now, here we are on Apple. I mean, if you want to really call it a bounce, I mean, this is barely a bounce, if anything. Here we're up 5-6 cents from that 150, from that 140.50. So I just keep an eye on it. Trend is still, this is just like Tesla. Trend is still to the downside. They haven't broken to the upside just yet. So pressure, I would imagine, is still to the sell side. But if we've been trending all day, at some point, intraday shorts, I would imagine, are going to be looking to take profit. So I definitely look at that at some point as a potential option. 256, and we're going into the final hour. It could turn. 3 o'clock is usually when things turn, if they are going to turn. So we'll see what happens at 3. If 3 comes and goes and nothing happens, then it'll be an interesting close on Tesla just because it's down 2.5%, and NASDAQ is only down 1%. So way outside of what the NASDAQ as a whole is doing. So Apple, relatively weak. Should be an interesting one towards the end if we don't get any turns happening in the next few minutes.
Yeah, Tesla performing worse than the offense of England because they can't score and it's halftime. Like, figure it out. I don't know, whatever. Ridiculous. They should be winning no problem. I don't know what England's doing sometimes. But AMD is above VWAP, so we'll ring the register there as that continues to try to bounce off these levels. I'm going to try and get 40s. Next time it dips down, I'll get closer to 40s instead of in front of that 50 level. Just rinse and repeat it here. I do think it can get to 74 if it can get going. And then Man U. Oh, Man U. What did you do? I keep hitting NASDAQ. Yeah, it trailed me out. I moved my trail up to 22 right here in this channel. It took me out. Now I'm just looking for the next move. So if it sits here sideways long enough, like, 'cause this is what happened. Like, it actually, like, let's say you had these breaks here earlier on. Right? Like, if you had like a 2180, let's say, dip buy earlier in the afternoon, it breaks out, maybe trails you out of it, but then like right after it would have trailed you out if you were trailing stop this thing, it then establishes another consolidation. That's where I first got in. As a matter of fact, I'm still bidding down there. I don't know why. I don't need to. So if it comes back in, great. I'll bid 22s or 22.10, maybe even 22.20s, depending on when it turns. But if it ends up holding this channel, well, I can get back in 2 ways. I can either get back in essentially where I got out in the 50s, or I can just take a long through the high at 23 even. So I'm not done with this, but on that breakout, I was looking for just a couple of scalp trades, hopefully hold it to 23. It's not doing as much volume as before. You can see the volume already tapering off after that big spike. So no need to hang on to that one forever. And I just saw someone say IMAX. I haven't really looked at that stock in a while. I didn't see anything crazy happening on there, and I did want to get back to some of these small caps because I know they're starting to go, and that COSM is definitely one that I want to be paying attention to. Of course, now Man U's going to go without me. I might just have to get back on that bid. Come on, COSM. There we go. COSM now making a break of VWAP, so I might not get, this is good for it being bullish, but I might not get a shot at that 65-cent level again. This one could be gonzo, and I might have missed the turn. Hopefully, there's still a shot at Brendan.
Yeah, I just saw this one pop up too. IMAX, guys. Looks like there was a huge call December 17th. That doesn't make sense. 16th, maybe. Call order that went through. So maybe just the other side coming through on the equity there. So, yeah, a huge block print went off on IMAX.
Interesting. I mean, look, I think we're in an environment where a lot of the moves can just be like a lot of call buying coming in. And, oh, here comes Mullen. So Mullen's pulling back pretty heavily here after that. So remember 2150, now it's pulling back. I'm going to get something in front of the quarters because I don't want to necessarily miss this trade if it just comes down really fast here. So I do have a bid popped out in front. It shouldn't halt or anything like that. But as it gets back into VWAP, I want to see if I can pick some up there. I don't really see anything outside of what you were sort of saying as a catalyst in the volume spike. In terms of IMAX, I know it sets up like 16 break, good looking chart. I don't know if I like the volume enough to get involved in a late day break. So I like where the volume's at in Man U. I like where the volume's at in COSM. I like where the volume's at in Mullen as well. AMD, I'm looking another 10 cents, and we'll take another leg out there. And I'm kind of hoping that some kind of a bounce will happen, or at least enough of a bounce to get me back into PayPal. For now, not a heck of a lot, but I'm not compromising on where I want this short. If I want to be out when this is taking out 75.80, then I want to make sure I'm not really shorting until it gets closer to that price. I can't short it at 78 and risk 75 cents when it's 10 cents off the low of the day. That makes no sense. So what am I going to do, like 1 to 7 risk to reward? That doesn't make any sense. So for now, just in that AMD, still looking for that bid in Mullen.
Yeah. I'm just looking around. At this point, I'm just setting up for tomorrow. I kind of just, this market's all, yeah, no. This market's going to be difficult to read. It's made it look like it was going to take a look at 50, and now it bounced right back into 57. It's just bouncing around. Like, unless you're extremely good at picking bottoms and tops and inside of ranges, this is going to be a tough one. So I'm going to stay away from this, but I am looking at the crude contract just to see what. Trade the range? It says trade the range. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's something I do have to learn to be better at. But crude, I think, is the easier one here. Consolidation with that 80 break, I think I'm going to set that up for crude. Tomorrow should be an interesting one for crude, I would imagine, especially with this consolidation. We could get that extension tomorrow. There's nothing, tomorrow's Wednesday. No, we don't have oil inventories until Thursday, right? Or is that?
No, that's only if there's a holiday. Well, today's Tuesday, that's right.
Yeah, today's Tuesday. Is Nat Gas on?
No, I thought oil was on Wednesdays.
Yeah, okay.
Speaking of nat gas has been moving, man.
Yeah.
I don't really look at natural gas very often, other than Tellurian, which I think is a pretty interesting shot play. Anyways, it's not something I actively trade, but I want to have some more looks at it, because we actually do have it on our platform. We can trade those, and we sort of always talk about learning new things, and following the energy markets and maybe looking at the actual futures is something that I kind of want to do a little bit more. You don't always have time, and I was joking when I said trade the range to a room, because you do want to stick in your lane. You only want to put capital towards the things that make you money. It's always good to learn. It's always good to try new things, but paper trade them. Like, you should never. The way I like to frame it is like nothing should be beneath you, and nothing. You shouldn't be above anything, and nothing should be beneath you. And what I mean by that is, like, you shouldn't be above, no matter how long you've been trading min size, paper trading, working on a strategy, understanding I don't understand this, and until I do, I'm not going to put any money to it. But at the same time, when you do have something that works for you, when you do have a strategy that's good, you're not afraid to go all in that situation. You've got to be able to play both ends of it. I don't know anybody that's successful in the business for a long period of time that doesn't have that within them. So I was kidding when I said, Arun, start range trading. No, you can mess around and sort of like paper trade it and then start working on some ideas, but until you have something that makes sense to you, you shouldn't do it. Speaking of which, I meant to talk about AMD there, because I was just looking at that fill at the 70s. I'm back on the bid. I want to play inside of this range. It's a stock I've been looking at pretty much all afternoon. As long as the futures hold up, I don't mind buying these dips in front of these consolidation levels. And I didn't actually get into Man U. This is sort of the issue with trying to play this when, like, I used the trailing stop, which is fine. I had a trail at 40. I moved it up, so we held out a little bit longer. But sometimes I feel like it's almost a little bit too tight. And it's not moving that rapidly. And what will happen is do no volume, no volume, no volume. Boom, pop, there's a move. And I'm waiting for it to do that thing where it's no volume, sideways. And then that's when I want to get back in. So I want to be patient with Man U. The way you got to look at it is, I was in this at 140. We came on air at 2 o'clock. I had to sit in it for another 25 minutes before it went. But the risk was literally about 15 pennies on the trade, and it just went like 75. Not that I captured it all. I pretty much got like 2 to 1 on that one, 2.5 to 1 at best. And then, but you don't mind sitting in that kind of a trade. So if it sets up again, you got to be able to wait for it. If that's the only thing you do, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that if that's the only trade you made. You saw me sitting on the bid of Mullen, and this wick is not real because I'm bidding 20 1/4. So this would never wick to 20. I'd be long if it did. And sometimes that'll happen. On the way down, I was so close. I wanted to talk about something else, figuring this is now flushing. I'm going to get that bid. And it stalls out, turned at like 20.35 or some nonsense like that, and then checks back to the upside. So when that happens, there's no point being on the original bid, because if it comes down lower, it's probably going to make a lower move, actually down to 20 this time. So I'll probably get right in front of that 20. I'm not going to chase it. Forget it. That's fine. I'm not, you know what? I'm just going to show. I'm going to get in front of 2010 here again. I just want to buy dips in front of 20 in VWAP on Mullen, and then hope to not miss the move here if it does make another check down. But it bounced exactly where I would have liked it to. Just didn't quite get to my bid, unfortunately. And of course, PayPal is going to take out the low of the day without me.
You know what's funny is I haven't actually taken a look at PayPal. I don't know why it's not on my list of names, but it's one
Square
name.
too, if you like that one.
Oh yeah, Square too.
Block.
So when we sit on different computers, everyone has their logins, right? But whatever you set up is for that computer. So if I have a trade list or a symbol list on that computer, and I sit over here for Sean, all of a sudden I don't have the same symbol list, even if I made some modifications.
The cloud.
For what?
Oh, you're.
I'm talking about eSQL.
Oh, you're talking about eSQL.
Yeah, eSQL
Gotcha.
symbol list. Yeah, PayPal. That's quite the move too. Damn. Wow. Okay. 78.50. That's. Let me take a look at the daily. This could be actually a decent move off the. Yeah, we got some space to the downside, maybe towards 75 on the daily. Okay. PayPal's one to watch in Square. I haven't actually looked at Square just yet, and we'll take a look at it when we come back from Brendan.
Session lows here, guys, coming into play for Tesla on decent volume. Note from Electrek just coming across. This was out moments ago, in fact, talking about U.S. market share for EVs, suggesting that, if you scroll down here, so in 2020, they're mentioning 79% of new electric vehicles registered in the U.S. were Teslas. In 2021, that number dropped to 69.95, and now in 2022, they're looking at 65%. I mean, yes, there's all kinds of additional new models from different manufacturers coming into play, but kicking them when they're down, guys, Tesla day lows.
You know, it's almost as if somebody doesn't like Tesla and leadership at Tesla right now. Because let's be real for a second. If you're first to the market and like you're essentially synonymous with EVs, it doesn't even matter whether it's the EV market. Who cares? And you have that kind of a market share, it's completely inevitable that no matter how successful you are, your market share is only going to come down at this moment. Because as everybody's trying to move into the EV space and competition is out the wahoo, even if you did things perfectly, you'd have no chance to maintain that kind of a market share in the short term. It doesn't mean you're not going to be the winner in the long term, but I mean, that's what we deal with. And of course, as quickly as Tesla makes a low, it's kind of bouncing higher. This time, it is actually moving. I'm going to try and get a short on 180 because I wanted to see, let's see it put some volume in and move, and then I'll try to fade any pop. And I think 180 makes some sense here. And as I say that, someone's selling 179.50s. Hopefully it'll break that person and I can get something a little bit higher. I'm trying not to chase this one too far every single time and then try to get it off the level that I like. Let's see if I can actually do that this time. By the way, Man U could be coming back down to test the bid. AMD longs, I'm going to get an offer out in front of 74 because if it gets there, I think I need to be taking this. But I've been ignoring NVIDIA a little bit, and I think it's worth noting here, like AMD is kind of doing this on its own a bit. Like NVIDIA doesn't seem to want to participate. I was trading Intel earlier, and Intel has been holding beneath VWAP. I got stopped out 29s. If it comes back up, I did make a wick high here. I might just jump back in off that 29 area. But AMD is holding some strength, and it's doing so. And if it can go, maybe it can drag the other semis with it. I'm trying to see what else is strong there. I keep looking at Marvell. I know they report later on this week, and it's after it loads up here in a second. Come on, Marvell. There we go. Again, it's like everything else is just a little bit weaker, and AMD's trying to drag things higher. So if I see a few of these names get above VWAP and start breaking out, and I'm not out of AMD at 74, I might just cancel that offer if everything else wants to participate. But for now, AMD is trying to do most of this lifting on its own. I see people talking about Meta, Meta's making moves to the upside. Okay, so there's something that's going. I'm canceling my 108s from the pre-market because that dip buy is very clearly completely useless at this point. It never came to 108. It got to 108.50. I wasn't really aggressive enough with it. I wanted 108s only. So breaking 110 as we speak. I'm going to like this into VWAP, kind of like what I'm doing with AMD. Any dips, we'll take it. If it takes out 110, 20 it looks like, and the market starts going, this has room to get to the top. So yeah, I'm liking Meta. Thank you guys. Thanks for shouting that one out. This is another reason why it's the best community out there, because as we're looking for trading ideas, like what's moving, what's not, a lot of things are not moving. Meta absolutely is, and it's strong. So let's look for some long trades there. And then, did I hear Visa's on the uptick? I haven't looked at Visa in forever. Arun was
talk-
trading Visa. If that's moving to the upside, he's the man to talk to.
Yeah, we'll talk about Visa. Yeah, Visa was a nice trade earlier. It was my only real big winner, which was that short here around 210. And we got some out here around 209 and change, so by 80-something cents it was, 85 cents or so. And then it just completely fell apart. Remember, my target for this was 207. That's where my second exit was waiting. We never got there. We got as low as like 207.40, and then we kind of came back through at 08. At that point, take what you can get. This it did look like this was a little too far, too fast. That drop from 209 to 207.5. So that snapback move north of 208 just got me out. But Visa, if you look at the chart on Visa, and the reason I would get involved, or why I got involved on Visa initially, was this here. We were consolidated, topping out, it seems like, around that 214, 214.5. And the bottom I put on that was around 211. But then with stops and placement and all that stuff, and the fact that we kind of snapped through there yesterday afternoon and came right back above, I'm going to immediately move that to 210. So once we got above 210, that kind of validates this entire consolidation above, at least the top end consolidation. So I'm like, you know what, 210 seems like a decent short place with the stop just north of 212, and I'm looking for a 1.5 to 1 target on this. So why not take a look at 207 as we were coming down? Clearly, we caught a bid around that 207.50, bouncing back up. But this trade, I would imagine, is now boxed in, right? You can't really get involved at 207, 208 because of the range, but at the same time, you've got some multi-day range. This is the multi-day range, I guess. Yeah, this is let me squeeze this chart in a little bit more. That's what the multi-day range looks like if you were to now put in the tops and the bottoms. So back into the middle of the range we go on Visa. If we get now down towards 206, underneath 207 into 206, there could be a decent bounce to be played here near the bottom end. Same way you were able to play the short near the top end, there could be something coming through the bottom. I did notice, though, that when I took Visa, MasterCard was also a name that was on the radar because of the way it was setting up, which is also kind of this topping action, breaking through that 344, opening up the downside. Visa, cheaper, better. I personally prefer Visa just because of how it was moving, the volume aspect of it. So I went with Visa. And Visa always comes out towards the end of the day with these random imbalance figures that just all of a sudden disappears. It's like 2 million shares buy, and then just completely disappears after like a couple minutes after the imbalances come out. Always happens. Well, not always, but it happens quite often on Visa.
We never speak in certainties, but I will tell you, like every single person that's ever watched the imbalances or sort of looked at the imbalances when they come out at 350, it used to be 340. Wasn't it used to be
345?
345.
Yeah.
I always want to say 345, but at 350, Visa pretty much it never stays, and so I guess it just means that people like to trade this one and use the closing auction, and and the facility's there to be paired off. The entire purpose of the imbalance is so that you can declare to the market, there's too many buyers in the stock, we don't want it to print too far away from where it's trading, and then have an outsized move to the upside, so people come in and sell it because there's a buy imbalance. You'll be able to move shares selling them without moving the price of the stock. That's the reason they do it, so it actually works. So I end up jumping into Tesla. It will not go to 180. It keeps on going 150, and then someone would just show up on the offer at 179.50. Then every time it would break, someone would come right back down and take it down to the 50. So that's about a 25-cent range. So I figure, okay, I'm going to jump in, take it at 50, take some out when it goes 25 cents in the money, and then just hold the other half. That way, if it actually goes up here and curls at 75, I can jump back in, and then I'll be able to play this trend into the downside. I do see Mullen won't go down to my bid at 20, so maybe I don't get into it. However, I'm just going to shout out, finally England rings the register. I get nothing else to hit. And so 1-0. So they're not the only team down up 1-0. Punch that ticket to the next round. I think they're going to do well in the tournament. But Tesla, I'm in a bit early. I need to wait for it to get into this 75 range before I can actually add to it because I've already scalped 1-1. Now I'm looking for a place to get back in. Man U is pulling back. This could be my opportunity to get into that one. Don't want to be checking too many things at one time, but unless I get filled in like Mullen or one of the other small caps, I'm still looking for the dips at 22 on Man U.
Going back to the imbalances, back in the day, well, I mean, not that long ago, but still, Imbalance used to be tiered the way they released them, right? Like you remember that when
Yes.
Toronto came out at 340, New York came out at 345,
345.
and then NASDAQ came out at 350, and now everything comes out at 350.
What do you think that helps the most?
Yeah, right?
Well, see, like, I mean, obviously, if you have like human traders that are looking at the imbalance. By the way, Tesla's testing 180. I'm just gonna make sure I have a stop here at 180 because I don't want to get sort of run past my exit point on the stock. But if you have a bunch of human traders and you have 3 times where the imbalances come out, so North America, TSX at 340, New York at 345, and NASDAQ at 350, well, that makes a lot of sense because then you can kind of focus on one, move on to the next, and back and forth. But hey, if you're an algorithm, if you're not a human, you don't have to worry about that nonsense. So you put it all at the same time. I'm not saying that's the reason. I have no, who knows? Maybe that's not the reason, but it just seems like that obviously makes some sense to me. And that's most of the market. Let's be real. Like a lot of the market nowadays isn't real traders, unfortunately. I feel like it was better when it was, but who am I to say that? I'm just someone that's been doing it for a few years and noticed the different types of markets when you have the algos sort of taking advantage of different things. Like if you look at the amount of flash crashes, there's all kinds of videos out there and the amount of mini flash crashes that are out there in the market. And it's because you don't actually have human traders making a market. You have most of the market being made by algos who all react the same way when things get out of hand, which is just pull the bid in the offer. And then you get these crazy flash crashes and no one's confident to bid it. Well, if I think a stock is good and it's a value, you're gonna jump on that bid. As we come back to the upside, my stop's in. I chased a little bit on Tesla. It might cost me 50 pennies when I only made 25. That's a bit impatience on my part. But I never got my reload here in AMD. I'm trying to catch these bids. I need to find a way back into this. It could start basing out and holding VWAP and trending higher. And if that happens, I want to make sure I'm getting back into this game. Apple is finally in the pocket. Enter twice. Is finally getting back into the pocket close to this 141. So it's been slowly grinding higher. I've been patiently trying to get to this one. If it can get back up here. This is the last consolidation it had, 140.90, 140.70, then it broke down. So as it gets into that level, this is where I wanted to finally short Apple, was that 140.90. You can give it an extra 10 to 15 cents. So not chasing this one, and I think I got in too early on Tesla, but I'm going to get into some Apple here. This one we're waiting patiently for. Now we finally shorted Apple. It only took till 317.
The issue I have with taking trades, like starting new positions this late, is that as we get into 3:30 and into the final 30 minutes, you start to get some closing programs activate, right?
Yep.
And
You have to
then
have tighter stops, though. That's the thing.
yeah, you do have to trade a slightly different. If you're trading this late into the day, you do have to trade differently than if you were trading, say, at like 2 o'clock, just because the game changes once the programs get turned on. Usually there's like 3 o'clock and then 3:30-ish. Going into the end, because people want to position up, especially with coming into tomorrow, where we've got pretty much all day there's something going on, right? We've got numbers at 8:30, we've got that number at 9:45, then we got another number at 10 o'clock, then we have possibly oil numbers, and we have the beige book, and we have the speech from Powell. And then we have the MSCI semi-annual index rebalance. There's a lot happening tomorrow, and it's also the last day of the month. So volatility should be high, activity should be high. If you've been kind of thrown off by this market lately, tomorrow might be a day where the market actually picks something to do and does it.
It might make more sense for people tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the market will clarify what it's doing. Like in terms of the daily, like if we pull up the S&P on the daily, I mean, let me just remove all of these things. Remove all of those. We're coming to the bottom end. This is the daily. We're coming to the bottom end of what was the last consolidation point, right? We're sitting just underneath 39.50. So the fact that we're catching a bit here makes sense. The question ends up being, what happens if we break through that low of that consolidation point, which is around 39.10-ish? If we get through there and into 3900, I think that's when things really start getting interesting. And maybe tomorrow might be the day where we get to see that. If we bounce up, not as interesting to the upside. Why is pretty clear cut how it's going to react to the upside. I think the most action would come through the downside. We move faster going down always, whether it's stocks, equities, whatever. Fear is much more of a motivator than greed to the down in terms of speed of the move. So if we move to the downside, we're going to see some decent action, I think, with some decent speed as well. So definitely range bound for the last little bit. Since that day we popped, what was that, CPI number, right? It was the day we hit the CPI, then just took off, and we never stopped.
Yeah, we haven't looked back. Really.
Yeah, and then we just went sideways and consolidated in this little 60, 70 point range, and now here we are at the bottom end of that range.
But we still had the bear out. Still on the bear. We're down one. Look, it's the Nasdaq's down close to 1%. I know the ES is trying to hold a little bit closer to positive, but realistically, if Apple's down 2.4%, it's hard to not think about this being a bit of a short day. But you just said there, you have to trade a little bit differently when you have this time of day. So we'll contrast two trades. Like one, wait. Just the whole time, it's like, okay, wait for Apple, wait for Apple, wait for Apple. Finally gets back up there. There's your previous channel. Oh, there's the wick. Get in, scalp out a little better than 1-to-1, and then try to take more. So there's that, which is good, and there's this, which is bad. Don't wait on Tesla. Like originally like Tesla at 141, then like it at 181, then like it at 180, end up shorting it when it's at 50s and then reloading at 75, right? And it's just a little bit extra that you lose out on by not being patient. And now the market's going to head back into the upside. Now it's breaking higher. I don't even want to reload Apple at this point. Like if we were going to make a big outsized move and suddenly like that was like, oh yeah, we're going back down on Apple, but it's a tight consolidation. That's like in a shorter time frame, a wick bottom that could break out. So if it wants to chop me around, fair enough. I'd rather just get chopped out, be up on that trade and take the win. Of course, at 320 is when I actually get Mullen off VWAP here. So first bounce, there you go, that's great. Second bounce, not usually as good, but I'm in it anyways, in front of 20 even. I'll probably only give it to like 1980, 1975. Not going to risk a heck of a lot here because it was much better the first time through. So if it holds VWAP, great. I don't want to be stubborn about Mullen here. I probably missed the opportunity for that one a little bit. Tesla making a bit of a bounce at COSM. I don't know if I'll be able to get to COSM. It's gone now. You know, this will be frustrating because it's like I'm sitting here in Mullen on the dip when COSM probably gave some good opportunities, close enough to 65 to have been in when it was bouncing 60. Then it even broke out here at 70. Maybe that was worth it for a trade. I did like 65 at that moment. When it pulled back off 70, I was looking 65. And it never really got there. So, you know, there's always a chance that I would have had to break a rule to be able to get into that trade, unfortunately. So it'll just be Apple, tight trigger on Mullen. AMD still holding. Just to check back in on AMD. I haven't actually gotten any other bids on AMD because I'm not trying to chase it too far. I just want to be long in front of 73.40, which means I want to get 50s and 40s only, risk 15 to 20 cents. If it's only giving you 30 to 40 pennies at best, then I'm risking 15 to 20 cents. That simple.
All right, I'm just like looking at potential trades that I can work with tomorrow. We're setting up some moves on Apple. We're talking about Tesla as well. There's been a move in First Solar, which is kind of interesting. It's not a name that I don't know if you guys bring it up a lot, but it's not a name that I look at too often. 160 on First Solar seems to be a decent base, right? It's near the bottom end of the consolidation before we ran up to 172, and then also just underneath the tops of where we were resisting before we got that breakout, right? So we're coming back into that now, into this little zone here, which is catching somewhat of a bid here. It's downtrend, so respect the downtrend, but at the same time, interesting, right? Going into a buy zone, a support zone, which has been worked since, what day is this? November the 4th, right? That's where we started this whole thing. And even though we got away from it, we came right back into that 160 area. So keep an eye on this one here. At First Solar, setting up a trade for another day, not necessarily tomorrow. I think today's trade, at least in First Solar, is done. You know, it's trending down. Odds are it's probably going to come out with an imbalance. Most likely a sell. If I were to guess, I would imagine it's a sell, but who knows? And here we are kind of just rolling through and continuing on down. So First Solar going to support for another day, not today, but definitely one that's showing up on my radar as a name. And then Win was, well, I'm just going to talk about Win just because it was a trade earlier this morning where taking out 81 after the gap would have made sense, and then they instantly reversed that. Now here we are, failing the breakout after gapping up, but yet refusing to go down any further into that gap. So we're kind of like just wedged in here. It's like, are we going to go down through this area? Yeah, I'll draw. Are we going to go down through this area and catch a bid? Or are we just going to do nothing and just drift down. I think win's also one to watch. When stocks are at extreme points and they refuse to continue an extension, especially after a gap, they're going to be one to watch. Even if they're not doing anything that day, I would just watch them just because there's going to be a trade setting up and you can base it off of the volume and the action that comes through and whether this is actually strong or weak, if this gap up that doesn't go right now is actually a build-up or if it's actually a failure. So I'd keep an eye on this one going forward.
Yeah, so I got the reload in AMD, and that quickly, I don't want to interrupt the room, but my stop was out there when we broke the channel on AMD, so I'm out of it. You'll see that one's going to be gone. It's just Mullen and Apple that are going to be left for me here now with no more AMD. We might be running out of time for me to trade Manu again. I know that was a good one, and we always say like be patient with it. You really had to be patient. Eventually made the move. It got close enough to where it's getting close enough to 22 quarter. That I don't mind that long, but it's 325. We're definitely running out of time. And that part of what you said about Win is why I'm not trading it anymore. I just feel like you said, like anytime something is setting up on a higher time frame, counter to like my original thought, it's like it should have been a little bit stronger than it is right now. But it had all kinds of support down here. But if I wasn't long, what would I be seeing here? I'd just be seeing a wick top, and if ignored the news, all I'd see is a wick top and a consolidation lower, and that's a short for me like 10 times out of 10. And if that's what you see, and you don't have a buy, sometimes you ask yourself, if I wasn't trading it, and if I didn't know what the news was, and if I was flat or all those different things, like what would I be doing when I saw that setup? Well, I'd be thinking about shorting this off of that previous high that it failed to break on. So I'm going to be very cautious with any longs here tomorrow on Win. I need to see it above that 81 and breaking out, or maybe just back down to 75, 76, which is fine. So just in Mullen, I have my offers. I want to get out on the way to 21. It's a 20-cent stock. It just bounced off VWAP. I don't think we're going to see 21.50 again. So on the way to 21, I want to get some out. And if the market rolls back into the downside, which it looks like it's doing, I've got my Apple bid, and I have to zoom back in and out here to show you the range. Apple getting down to low of the day. I was just going to sit on the bid, but this is accelerating, so I'm just going to cancel. As we're accelerating to the downside, I'll give it some more room into the low of the day. I can always get out manually. I'm only in the 2 positions. I'll give it some room into the low of the day here. As Apple retests 140 potentially, and the imbalance is still at 20 minutes to go, so there's definitely time for us to get a few more moves in here. But by, I think, punking myself on Tesla, and taking it sub 180, it ends up going a little bit closer to 181, and that's the level I originally wanted, turns right around and gives you a pretty solid move. So I know the level I like, and it's got to be that 180. I never got into Meta, however. Like that one got brought up to us. I'm sitting right here on the bid at VWAP. I never actually picked it up. So it came down, sees the bid, doesn't actually fill in front of VWAP. Whenever that happens, I don't want that price again. Because it's likely to run, now you are the line in the chart, and it's like it comes down there again, it's going to run you over. So it needs to either bounce higher and consolidate in the time we have left, or check through and give me like 20 cents better. Because you need to get that fill and be getting out here. If you don't get the fill, it's no good the second time through. Usually it's no good the second time through, so I'm going to stay away from that one. Might be one more shot here at Manchester United, so I'm going to go ahead and take it. It just bounced off the quarters. We had an exit here at 35. There was liquidity there on a 3-minute. It looks like nothing happened at that price. Trust me when I tell you there was a little bit of a checkup. That's why I took some out there. And then it's never a coincidence when you find support at that same level anyways. So I'm going to get long on Manchester United, hopefully for the last time here today, because I don't think it's going to be worthy of like 10, 20 trades. Just one more entry off of this consolidation, try to run it to the highs. I'm bidding at 40. Of course, it's going to start to run up, but I'm not going to chase it. I'm not going to get stubborn.
Yeah, and Apple, I think, is the one, the index name to watch. Why?
Oh, Playmaker.
What's he saying?
No, Playmaker's Playmaker in the chat. I hope you're enjoying the day, brother. But these soccer guys make LeBron look like an amateur flopper. Well, they should make him look like an amateur flopper. I get it, LeBron flops all the time. But, I mean, who started flopping first? Right? Like, if it's been a way of life in soccer for I don't know when it started, but at least decades, right? Then they should be the best at it as far as I'm concerned. I'm going
to say this right now. I don't watch a whole lot of soccer, but I do remember a while ago, people were making fun of Neymar for continuously rolling.
Oh, that rollover.
Yeah,
roll?
he was just rolling. It's like there's like 3 extra rolls unnecessarily. Apparently, I'm just like, okay, well, I mean, hey, when you're running like what 10 kilometers a game, 10 or 15 kilometers a game, I mean, if you can get a break, why not, right? Like these guys are running a lot.
Don't make excuses for them.
There's no excuses for that. Still, it's just like one of those things where just like,
You know how
as a player, I'm like, oh, 15 kilometers in a game, yeah,
He's
I'm
not
gonna
doing
flop.
it because he's tired. Those guys are in ridiculous shape. Let's be real for a second. They do it because it works, quite frankly. Like, you're playing to win, and if people are going to fall, if the refs are going to fall for it, then you're just going to do it. And I'm not I remember, and I did this once, and I was playing in a basketball tournament, one that we knew we were going to lose in high school. Like, it was like the Marion Academy. I don't know if you know the Marion Academy tournament. Like, for us, my school, we'd get in, and it's like, you're not going to have a chance. You're pretty much outmatched every single game. So you're doing everything you can to win, putting on like a full court press. And I remember just like trying to do everything to make the press work. And I drew like this offensive foul on their point guard. And I knew I flopped. But at that point, it's like, okay, whatever, it happened. Like, I didn't feel good about it at all, but I'm like, the ref fell for it. So like the first thing on my mind, the next time we called the press and I was back on the point, is I'm like, this dude, he's gonna do it again, and I'm just gonna flop again. And if it works the second time, it works the second time. I didn't feel good about it the first time, but you're just trying to get the W. And so I get where people are coming from with it. It's not fun to watch, but when you're playing to win, sometimes it's just what you do. You put a little bit of extra on it. Like, you get hit legitimately, it's a foul, but you want to make sure the ref sees it. There's nothing cool about it when it happens, and it feels like crap. I don't care who you are, like, your pride tells you that you're being a chump when you do make that move. And I didn't feel good about it either, but hey, man. Sometimes it's all about that W. I'm still in the bit of Man U. I just got some out of Mullen here. I chuckle because it's like, it is what it is. But I chuckle because to me it's like hilarious sometimes. But 20.5. My next offer is going to be on Mullen. I don't know if we get back into 21s. Might have to get more aggressive. It's now 3:30. We're halfway through Power Hour. Apple's working to the short side. We got a muted bid on Mullen, but remember, the first time it bounced off VWAP, that was the better trade. So I'm not really anticipating that I should get more than that the second time through. Very likely, I need to be more aggressive, just sort of taking it out toward that half, right? 20 cents to 20 and a quarter, 20 and a half. You have to adjust your expectations on a penny stock.
Yeah, look at the chat. I think someone's got the early mock there, 179, 176, probably from Financial Juice to the sell side.
That's so small.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty small. I wouldn't expect that number tomorrow. I would expect tomorrow's number to be a little bit bigger, whichever direction it goes in. But today, it seems like it's going to be somewhat leaning on the sell side, but the big one is going to be Apple. And I think last time I was here for you, and it was Apple was running strong, and then they came out with a big buy, relatively speaking, to be fair. It came out with a buy imbalance and took off like $2. So let's see if Apple comes out with another sell side imbalance today. It's down 2.5%. It's trending down. We'll see if we can get a sell side imbalance on Apple, and we may see that 140 if we get that negative imbalance.
If I'll put my face on the camera, can I get in the middle? Look at AMD. I had to do that to myself. Look at AMD. Like, the second I get checked out of it, this is where you got to re-enter the trade, like right here. 73.40, right on the way back in. Just jump back. Wick bottoms there. Got to jump, say it held that next higher low. You can just get back in there, risk another 10, 15 pennies and play it to the high. But it finds the same resistance. But sometimes that's what we talk about for like adjusting your strategy when you get late in the session and you're range bound, is you want to make those quick decisions. Now, I went over to Mullen, got to fill there, and then got to fill in Man U, but that's what you want to do. Man U just gave me 40s finally. So this, like I said, it's going to be the last trade. I think I make in Man U today because we're way too late in the session. And it took a lot of patience the last time that I got into it. I was sitting in it for like a half an hour before it spiked. It's going to make a move before that. Tight stop in here underneath 30, and then just look for it to get anywhere near to that high. $23 is monster resistance on Man U. So I would expect that if it gets up there, there's almost no chance it's going to break that today. So I want to make sure if it does make a run at that high of the day, I'm getting out in front of it. Apple is now, with AMD going back up and the market going back up, Apple looks like it wants to follow suit. If that's going to be the case, I might not get that low of the day in 140s, and we'll have to take it out where it lies. You just said a sell imbalance, but 176 is tiny. 176 million is completely insignificant. So I'm not really expecting any fireworks here, especially with the market grinding higher. I'd rather get paid on the short instead of holding out, hoping the imbalances help me out.
Yeah, we're getting a move in the right direction, I would think, after a day like today where we've been kind of negatively biased, but at the same time not overly aggressive to the sell side to stay in that direction. You're starting to see a lot of people take profits, right? And that's where you're starting to see AMD pop up, Apple pop up. I know you guys in the chat are mentioning Visa back above its VWAP. So 208 is where I'm looking, and now we're at 208.50. It makes sense. Shorts are taking profit, futures market bumping up because you're seeing some index names go with it. It all makes perfect sense to me that we're doing some covering action now after a negative day. But at the same time, it's going to be a matter of these imbalances, because if this imbalance, let's just say it is sell side small, they could still cover after that, right? If it's sell side big, I think you may see some shorts pause for a little bit here, and they may want to take it right into 4 o'clock. So what time is it, 3:35? Yeah, so we got about 15 minutes left. Let me do a quick imbalance tutorial. I do this every time. So just for you guys, for everyone who's wondering, what am I talking about? Imbalances come out at 3:50 every day. And it essentially gives you how much interest there is on people that want to participate on the closing price, on the official closing price. So you throw an order out, tag it, call it an on-close order, and all of that gets totaled up. And at 3:50, they release that info to everyone who has, I guess, subscribed to the data. All brokers have it. It's just a matter of how your broker kind of distributes it in your platform. For us, because
they make you pay.
Yeah, they make you pay. So, I mean, they make the brokers pay, and then the brokers are probably going to charge you for it and all that stuff. But in our platform, because this is in-house software, right, built for us, this is just how we have it here. So on the back end of it, yeah, regardless, the data feed comes in and is just filtered through, and then we get the imbalance locator in at 3:50. This is from earlier, and I also have like an early ARCA source that should not be here. So this is from earlier, 9:30 this morning. All of it stops at 9:30. That's for the morning imbalance. So the afternoon imbalance comes in at 3:50, and then all this gets updated. It'll look something like this: symbols, direction, size, and this is the paired value. You can ignore the other two. So the direction and the size are going to be the big things, right? So if you have Apple, let's say, for example, which is now coming back down at 140.58, if Apple has a big sell side imbalance, relatively speaking, 4 million shares, call it. For whatever reason, 4 million was enough to move Apple last time. So we'll say 4 million again to the sell side. Odds are Apple's going to freak out a little bit and start going down. Why? People are going to imply that there's going to be pressure on the sell side because these imbalances are going to stick around until 4 o'clock. Well, 350 comes the first release, and then 355 is the second release, where they include the floor broker interest in their clients. So a lot of the times what happens is whatever comes out at 350 doesn't stick around until after 355. They change. They completely disappear. A lot of times you've seen these big index names, and then they'll disappear. Visa, notorious for that. Comes out huge, you're like, and everyone gets into the everyone knows the pattern that Visa tends to come out with, which is comes in huge and then disappears, right? And that's usually after 355, just because once you get the updated figures after 355, that's what you roll with. So if there's a big number that comes out at 350 and sticks around after 355, odds are that number is going to put some pressure on the name itself, and then the pressure on the name is going to move the stock in that direction, right? So that's essentially what we do with the imbalance locator and how we look at it and what we look at it for. It's just a matter of how much pressure is going to be in the name going into the end of the day. But on a regular day, I wouldn't expect too much. But Sean will be back here tomorrow. I'm sure he's going to show you guys the imbalance locator, because tomorrow's imbalance locator should be much different. Yeah, it's going to be much different than today's, including the morning imbalance too, because they started doing some imbalance action in the morning. And tomorrow is the MSCI semi-annual index rebalance. So that should be bringing extra volatility and extra weight to all these imbalances at the end there.
Yeah, because they know they can get their shares done at the close. And look, we don't ask for a lot, but the thing about it is, like, if you want that data feed, like you said, you're going to get charged for it. However, here, we're just going to flip it up and we're going to show it to you at 350. So, we're going to let you guys know what it means, how we use it, what we think about it, our opinions here or there. You don't have to trade off of it, but you definitely can learn off of it for free. We only ask one thing. We ask that Fahad share fries when he brings them to the office, and we ask everybody to hit the like button. As far as I'm concerned, it's really easy. to just click the button, hit the like because you're happy. It's just as easy when you have literally 100 French fries to just share one with somebody else. So it's all about sharing. We share information with you guys so that we can give back to the trading community. All we ask is for a like and a subscribe, and then tell your friends about it, because the bigger the community, the better. I wouldn't have had PayPal if it wasn't for the size of the community and a couple of traders talking about it this morning, and I hope we give that same benefit to you as well. Sharing is caring. That's what I tell my daughter. That's what I try to tell you guys. That's what I try to tell Fahad, but he doesn't listen to me, and now he's telling me to go to Brendan.
Just saw a note, guys, on TikTok once again. Snap and or Meta, not really doing much. Actually moving to the downside here a little bit for Meta. But apparently the South Dakota governor has banned TikTok for state government officials. That's according to Benzinga right now. So no more TikTok if you work in the South Dakota government.
No, how many people that work in the South Dakota government are actually on TikTok? Because I would imagine there's going to be
South Dakota, period.
That's another question that I don't know the answer to, but it's an interesting question, though.
900,000 people in South Dakota as of 2021. It feels a little
small.
Guys, if you're watching, look, I'm not trying to be like plead my ignorance here. I'm Canadian. Let's be real. So I know my geography, but I'm not up to date on about the size of different regions. So that doesn't seem like it's that big. But I just got an Apple. Not to quickly pivot here, but I got out of Apple when it checked back down into 140.50, and this probably deserves to be the last trade on Apple, because it just started making a move, and I probably compromised a little too much on getting the shorts at 75s instead of waiting for the top at 141. So I'm in here at 73, and what I might just do is, like, the first move down, I might just take the opportunity to get some out close to flat, because that was a violent spike up, and it is close enough to the end of the day that I want to make sure that you relieve that pressure. You don't want to get caught too far off balance here. And the market is just whipsawing around. So I was looking for that pop. I just feel like I got in a little bit too early there. Definitely some moves happening. Not so much in Man U, because that checked out through the bottom, so I had to stop out of that. And then Mullen might just be done. I'll go back to this tomorrow if it's still above 20 cents. But all you got was this push, and thankfully I was able to get some shares right on 20 even. Otherwise, the fact that it gets to 20 and a quarter, not that bad. I got some out at 35, 40s, but it's going to check and probably break VWAP here, and I'm just going to get out. I might manually just punch out of a Mullen before it even takes out that low if it can't seem to hold above 20 cents. This could just be a trade here tomorrow, guys, unfortunately. I did not look at COSM again because I felt like I had missed the trade, and look how strong it is. It's right back up at the high of the day. Should have been in this one. Instead, I went over to I went over to Mullen. It has not broken this double top, so the double top is still pretty valid. When I come in tomorrow, my first thought is that 90 double top. It needs to clear that, or I'm not convinced that this thing is going to make that run at $1. So I might be thinking short off 90, to be honest with you, in tomorrow's trade on COSM. But I love that 65 long. Maybe I'll get a shot at that tomorrow for some retribution in this stock.
All right, I see you T trades. I got you. Okay, when I do a price action, first thing I'm going to do is look at the daily, see what's going on. So we'll pull up the daily on Microsoft, and immediately, let me remove these lines so I can actually work it with you guys. All right, so this is the daily. Immediately, what do I see? Where are the tops, where the market really doesn't want to be? It seems like right around here, we keep peaking here around 250, call it 252 and change. Why? There's a lot of back and forth above 250. I want to give it a little flexibility. So let's call that the daily top that I want to work with in terms of resistance. So anything here should bring some action. Oh, no, that's not it. Anything here should bring some short side action. Okay, we'll leave that up there. Supports. Obviously the low is there. We don't need to go that far down. Where's the bottoms here? Well, we keep peaking here, it seems like, through these days. There's a little trend there. So what I'm going to do is actually put a line through the bottom there. I would call it 227. That should break anything that was previous resistance on the way down in the trend. Since we gapped through there, I would imagine there's still some stuck shorts through these tops there. So I'm going to say 227 and change. That's why that's down there near the bottom. Now, micro trend or micro range would probably put you at 337. That's the bottom that we put in a few days ago. So now let's break it down to a smaller chart, 30-minute chart. What do you got? There's your bottom end of the range. Let's fix that a little bit. It's 237 near the bottom. There's your top end of the range, 248 going up. And here we are, dead center. Well, not dead center, but we are in that consolidation point near the top with the downward trend. So given where we are, I think the easier trade is to either get Microsoft to move away from 240 and lower to either set up the long near the bottom end of the range or just get it to snap back up, right? Once you get above 243, 244, you have space all the way to 248. So there's three potential trades here. You can either work the lower half right through here on the support side. You can get the breakout north of 244 and try to take it to the upper half, or then you can work the upper half as well, potential shorts. And then, of course, if you break either side, you take the extension down. And I think that was the bottom of that multi-day trend I mentioned. So there should be some support going on through 232, 233. So here you are, mid-range, looking at the support zone and see if we can't get through that. Given where Apple is, given where Microsoft is, I would imagine there's going to be some movement through some resistance and some consolidation points tomorrow. How it's going to go, I don't know, but at the same time, given the volatility I would expect for tomorrow between the Fed and the index rebalance and some economic numbers, I would imagine there's going to be a decent amount of activity going through some numbers, through some names, through some big chunks of sideways action that we've been putting in for days, because I think it's about time. If there's one day to do it, I would imagine tomorrow would be the best candidate to make that kind of a move.
Absolutely, and it was so good. Like, that was so profound that Greg on the bridge over there, our trading floor manager, I think he just spilled his water. Hopefully it was water and not coffee there, Greg, and just be a little bit more careful. I want to shout out Farm Trader here. Thank you for the super chat. You know we don't ask for them, but we appreciate when we get them at all times. He says hit the like. So that's what it's all about. It's just about paying it forward. I think I got fortunate here on Apple. I got in a little bit early, like I just said to you guys. I'd relieve the pressure if it got back to break even. But once it got back up to that 141, I just took that 90 short. That's where we should have been waiting for. But I had to relieve some of this at break even. Got some out at 70 as well. I'm going to hold out for that 140.50. There's 3 minutes to go till the imbalances come in here. So at this point, no more reloading off this level. It either breaks out 141 and I'm out, or we check back into 140.50 and we'll get the bottom end of the range. I did get out of the rest of Mullen manually. I didn't even wait for it at all. I just sort of, once it was through VWAP and I saw it get close to the bid, I just hit the bid and got out. It was one bounce, it got to 20.5, barely to that, and then pressed back in lower. And this is an important thing. When you're looking for that retracement trade, when a stock goes parabolic like this, and you're not short 21.5, which I suppose would have been the better way to do this. A lot of times I will make that short trade. You want the first bounce. The first bounce is the best bounce. But if you do miss it, I think you got to give it a little bit more room to the low. Like, I was willing to bid it here, and it bounced off of 40s. On the way back in, just get yourself a better price, because it's unlikely to make a bigger move to the upside the second time through. There's far too many people on the bid at that point, and more people that are looking to take profit that didn't do so the first time. So two minutes to go till we get the imbalances. I saw someone ask and I don't know where this came from, so apologies for me missing this in the chat. Do Canadians like Britney Spears? And I have no idea why that got asked in the chat. I have absolutely I don't know why we would like or dislike Britney Spears more or less than Americans. I have no clue, so I'm going to give a big fat I don't know to that. I would assume about as much as everybody else, I guess. I'm not a gigantic fan, but I mean, you guys know the demographic I'm in, so I don't know what you'd expect there. I'm not a gigantic fan.
You should. I got a perfect idea for you. You should do a rap using Britney lyrics.
How the hell am I supposed to do that?
You're creative. I think you can do it, and you can overlay that on Prad's beat.
I've been actually trying to think of something for Prad's beat. So if you guys know that, by the way, England, they got this. But you guys know Prad dropped a beat, and okay, it's maybe not a beat, it's just like an intro to a beat that never really drops. But either way, I've been trying to think of something that you could do over that, and I'm coming up blank. But I have been giving it some thought, so I'm going to try. At some point, I'm going to. But he's supposed to continue it and actually do a little something more with that, so that it would be a real beat. And he just hasn't. It hasn't happened. So I'm hoping before he goes on vacation, he'll actually finish it off, so it's something usable. But I've been trying to think about it, but I don't think there's any way to use Britney Spears and drop lyrics. Like, that's, like Eminem probably could, but then he's a rapper. I'm not. I'm just a dude who's on YouTube trading and every now and then likes to drop a bar of something that I like. I don't actually even know any Britney Spears.
So you don't
lyrics.
say "Hit
I
Me
don't know
Baby"
her-
one more time when you're trying to get a fill? I feel like I've heard that. I don't know
No.
if it's from you or someone else.
It 100% was not me.
Okay.
It was not me. For sure. What did I forget?
Rob coming
I
in
can do
with
that
more.
one. Nowadays, everybody
go.
want to
All
talk.
right,
They got something to
Imbalance
say.
is in
When it
about
comes
15
out, when
seconds.
They move the lift, just a bunch of gibberish, and everybody acts like they forgot about Dre. That's an easy one. Rob just challenged me to that. That's easy.
There you
but
go.
Britney Spears, come on. Son.
All right, let's go to my screen, guys. Imbalance is coming out right now. What do we got here? Update 1.2. Week.
I just got
hey,
out of
look,
Apple.
it's Visa again.
It's the buy.
Visa's a sell, 1.1 million shares. NI sell side, WBD and Visa all sell side, 1 million shares. Small. And how long is Visa going to stick around before it disappears? I would say
354.
I don't even know if it's going to make it to 355. I'm going to say 353. Let's just guess on this at this point. Yeah, these imbalances are nothing. And Apple came out a buy of 480,000 shares. So we're not even getting that much action on Apple either. So no imbalance action. But look at the
I got
paired
stopped
value,
out on
though.
Apple when that came.
But look at the paired value on Apple, though. 4 million shares paired. So clearly the imbalance was there. They just offset it already.
Instantly paired it.
Yeah, so that's the paired value, right? Like it used to be this size, but they've already found an opposing buyer or seller in this case. So they've moved it down from 4.5 down to just 500,000 shares. So that's what you're left with here. 480,000 shares on the buy on Apple. Brennan.
I might want to check some NASDAQ imbalances. Guys, this just happened to Beyond Meat. Just went 1275 up to day highs here. There we go. Thanks, guys. On decent volume, so maybe an imbalance possibly on BYND.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking for it. I have one up here that's already alphabetical. So, pardon me while I try to flip to it, see if I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing it. But either way, that's not a bad move up to 13. 13 is a big price for Beyond Meat. But I need to find the imbalance. I want to see how big it is, because if it pops and it's a size that I think will pair off, then a lot of times I'm looking for that fade. And people in the chat are like, Neil, you should do Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion. I actually don't know any of their songs. You can see the gray hair on my head. Well, you can see it probably better on this side than the other side. I like what you guys would call old school hip hop. It is what it is. That's why you hear me do most of that, because, I feel like it's better. So I'm going to leave it at that. There's a few contemporaries out there that are fantastic. I'm looking at you, J. Cole. I'm looking at you, Kendrick Lamar. And there's a few others out there that have absolute game. But yeah, I don't know. Cardi B, not really my jam. I'm not seeing anything on Beyond Meat. Did you find the imbalance
I
there?
found the Beyond Meat.
Look how tiny it is. That's
It's
why.
72,000 shares to buy, and we popped. Okay. What's the volume on Beyond Meat on the day?
It's done 2 million shares.
That's not, no.
No, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a legit move that it made.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Beyond Meat. It's doing its own thing. It's not from the imbalance, because this is weak. There's no paired value, and the imbalance is like 72,000 shares. If you add them together, it's like 100K total. And yeah, okay, forget that. Let's just go right back to size. And we're still at 1.1. Visa still there. Am I going to be wrong? Oh, man. I said 253.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, oh, damn, okay. It's
Drop
not the
and give
first.
us 20.
It's not the first time today I've been wrong. It's actually, I would have actually been surprised if I was right today on this with Visa sticking around.
Arun, I'll tell you this right now. So don't worry. You can't be any more wrong. There's a certain stock. I'll go to it in a second because I have to show this because I saw people talking about the Dow. So look at the Dow. Yay, Dow. Making a bit of a pull, but it's been pretty strong. I don't know if you actually have ever traded. You ever looked at trading
Diamonds?
the diamonds?
I have, way back when, like
Okay.
very long time ago. We used to have Russell,
Not a
so
bad
we
trend.
used to have access to Russell futures contracts. I used to trade those, NASDAQ and this. We just never had Dow, so I had to trade the diamonds instead.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with actually. Sometimes the Russell's not a bad place to be if you're looking at it. And then sometimes, my mic is all sitting to the side. But the EWJ, like the Emerging Markets Index, in certain situations is good to trade or at least to look at it. Look, the Dow, I know sometimes it can be, what's the word I want to use here? Useless, because it's because of the way they weight the Dow, it's kind of useless. But that doesn't mean at times, based on what's in it, it can be leading trends and some defensive names and some cyclical names in there. So it can be useful to look at. I lost my train of thought there, which is now going to kill me. Shoot. Someone said something about Drake, and in my head I was going to make a comment about Drake, but I lost it, so I'm not even going to bother with that. Like I said, I'm out of Apple here. There's not too much. I'm not going to put any trades on the last 5 minutes. But the point of when I almost said Brendan, but when Arun pointed out that Apple instantly paired off, so like it was a buy and bounce that instantly paired. So stop out, instantly paired off, and then shot back into the bottom of the range, and then is now coming back up. Like that's the kind of thing the algos are just crushing, right? Like stops everybody out that was short. Instantly that buy and bounce was paired off, and then it's just dumped in. And then I guess whatever buying is left is coming back into the profit taking. Those are the little micro moves that can be in there. And then you're looking for an opportunity for there to be bigger ones, right? So it's not a huge imbalance on Apple. Now imagine if that had been a more significant sized imbalance on Apple, suddenly you're getting maybe dollar moves in there that you can scalp. But that's all it was. Ran stops on the buy imbalance, instantly paired off 90% of that imbalance, check back in, and then stay to buy so it goes higher. And now it's actually running. So I'm glad I stayed away from Apple because that's starting to go. I'm assuming Tesla's making a bottom as well. Some profit taking going into the close. Because taking profits today means buying, because this was only going one way all day long. Thankfully, I didn't get stubborn about the one short I had in Tesla.
Whew. So I sorted our imbalance locator by paired value instead of the size of the imbalance. Look at Apple's paired value, 5.3 million shares, and it's still a buy. So clearly, like they are very interested in keeping this afloat as a buy side move. So end of day covering, maybe position. They're building up a position going into tomorrow, whatever the case is. But there's a lot of interest here on Apple. And then in third spot, you've got Amazon, a buy as well at 3.3 million shares. And this is just from the paired value side of things. The imbalances are obviously small at this point. But surprise, surprise, who sticks around? Visa is still here.
It's still
It'll
pair
here.
off.
It'll pair off. It's just like way off in terms of my guess at least. I said 253 or 353, and they're still sticking around.
I knew what I forgot about. It wasn't Drake that I was going to talk about. It was CrowdStrike's reporting aftermarket today. That's what I knew. There was something that I wanted to get to before. I don't know the time that they're reporting. We saw Palo Alto. I loved trading that for a couple of days after earnings. There was some good longs to be had, and that stock has been an absolute beast. They did a split, and probably a different fate from CrowdStrike. This still trades. I'm not making this up, 75 times forward PE on CrowdStrike. The entire space, cybersecurity is expensive anyway, so this has been getting beaten down. It's been riding sort of beneath that 50 period and rejecting toward those lows, but it's putting in a higher low. If there's any kind of a beat here, there's definitely room to the upside on CrowdStrike. You start thinking about the 50 period at 153 and the 200s all the way at 177. I haven't double checked to see what the implied volatility is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was in the 10 to 15% range on CrowdStrike. I haven't checked. I'm speculating that's what it would be because I feel like Palo Alto was 11 or 12% implied volatility, maybe even a little bit more than that when they reported, and CrowdStrike could be just as volatile, if not more volatile. So one to watch for tomorrow. Only 2 minutes to go here. Thank you in the chat. 4:05 it should be when they do reports. So I don't know if we'll be sticking around for that one. That's a little bit late. But yeah, you got to be paying attention to the earnings when they come through. It's this. I'm still waiting on Marvell to report later on in the week. That's one of the chip names that I like to trade when they report their earnings. Usually don't touch it other than that.
Yeah.
Is it paired yet?
Which one? Visa? No, sticking around. 1.2 million shares. They're barely pairing this off. It looks like it's a 2 million share imbalance, and they've paired off 850 of that. So they've still got about 1.2 to do on the sell side here on Visa. I was in Visa. Visa, this does not warrant 1 point. I've seen bigger imbalances on Visa when it's done nothing. So this 1.2, I refuse to believe that this is going to stick around. But with 90 seconds left, they're still here. We'll see how long this lasts. I'm going to try and keep this up and see what the imbalance ends up sticking around with right at the end, because this makes me very curious. Because when there's unusual activity the day before rebalance, it kind of gives you an idea of how they want to play the rebalance as well. So I'm going to keep an eye on Visa here, sticking around 1.2 million shares to sell for now, with about a minute left. We'll see how this one closes out. Market making a move back up. Looks some short covering coming into play here right at the end, as we are now running towards 63 and probably towards 65 as we get into the end of the day.
So I see Euthanasia saying they just tweeted me something. I'll check that in a second. We got less than a minute to go. I don't know who's going to be on the bell. It's a genuine surprise for me. We have a chance for the market to actually get green, by the way, but we're keeping it on the bear overall. But talking about the ES, the NASDAQ's not going green. We have a chance for the market to go green. I'm going to be watching this crowd strike. Visa's now finally paired off. It always does.
Yeah.
But 30 seconds, the bell hasn't been lowered. And I don't see someone over there to ring it, so I might run over there and jump and do like one of those.
Don't hurt yourself.
I wouldn't hurt myself. I did it one time where I like leapt off the stage because I have no positions on. But I'm dropping the countdown, so someone's ringing it in 10 seconds.
Lucas is there.
The countdown's on. It's been a good Tuesday. Maybe not for the market, but there's been lots of opportunities. But in 4, 3, 2, and 1, ring it, Lucas. Casino closed. There you go. We got the nice bald cam in there. Why not?
Oh yeah, mine's looking real good.
You got to sometimes.
I'm getting closer and closer to actually completely.
At least you got the nice beard game.
Fair.
Definitely got the beard game going. But the market's now closed. I kind of dropped a hint at where we were at the close, where the market was. But you know what? There are a few things that are actually green today. I know it doesn't seem like it, but let's go to Brennan to see how the rest of the market was doing. We kind of know where the ES ended up here.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse when all is said and done, guys. Here's a look at how we end the day, still in the red, but yeah, only a quarter there for the S&P 500, 0.06 for the Dow, the NASDAQ 0.83. Nice day otherwise for the rest of these, including here in Toronto, 0.14 for the TSX, riding some energy strength, 1.5 there for crude. Yeah, and a bounce back for both Bitcoin and Ethereum as well.
Yeah, good day for Ether, but Brazil, 2%. What is that look about?
That's your ball cam focused on you specifically because Fahad didn't give you fries or something like that, probably.
This is the thing. If you get into a battle with the person that controls the camera, which that's Fahad. I mean, it probably should be Lucas right now, but Fahad is in control of it, so he's just like having some fun with it, which is great. That's fine. Try not to take ourselves too seriously, but I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. Want to shout out to Sharif and Prad doing a fantastic job on the midday show. Arun stepping in there for Sean. Will be back tomorrow. It's the end of the year, which if you watched last year, they wanted to take. Well, it's the end of the. It's getting close to the end of the month.
Yeah,
end of the year.
Gotcha.
If you watched the show last year, you kind of know that. We get some pressure to make sure we take our days off on the year. So we are usually, like Sean, Brennan, and I are always scrambling to get some of our days off. So you might see Arun a little bit more.
And hasn't changed this year as they all waited until the end of the year to start taking their days off. So you'll see me a lot more.
It's not as bad as it was last year.
No, it definitely isn't a lot as bad.
It's not as bad as it was last year. But maybe next time, next show, we'll actually get to eat some of the super chicken fries. Brendo, any final thoughts here?
I was just going to say, it's not as bad as it was last year, but it's pretty close. I mean, we even said at the beginning of this year we weren't going to do this, but hey, here we are. We love you, Arun.
The second it turns January, I'm booking time off in March. There you go. I'm going to take time off in the first half of the year, I promise. March break's coming up. I'm going to plan a trip. You know what? I'm going to go to spring training. That's what I'm going to do. So thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in here. It's been a fun show. USA won. England won, so I'm definitely happy about the World Cup results. The market didn't win, but definitely some good trades out there, and we're going to have some tomorrow for you. Sean will be back. We're all out here for you. This is Trader TV Live. We'll catch you at 8:30 a.m. See you tomorrow, guys.